Next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 890. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 890, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to education finance, the third engrossment.
Recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Loon, to introduce your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I'm pleased to present House File 890, which provides funding for young children, early learners up through grade 12 through our high school system. The bill overall provides a $1.1 billion increase in spending over the fiscal year 16-17 biennium, and that means $273 million over base funds for the projected biennium. Overall, we're increasing basic pupil aid by $153 per student over the biennium, over the 2 years. We are going to provide compensatory revenue that's providing funds specifically for children from low-income families who qualify for free and reduced lunch, and just over $22 million for that. $11 million is going to help those school districts. There's 86 of them that have excess pupil transportation costs. So for getting kids to and from school, they're definitely on the wrong side of the ledger in terms of their costs and the funds for that. So we're going to help school districts with that. $6.7 million, and this is devoted to the crisis in terms of shortages of teachers in our state, and that concerning problem, and one that we definitely are working to try to address. We've got shortages from geographic areas in Minnesota where it's very difficult to attract teachers. We have shortages in particular types of licensure, and also in trying to attract more diverse teachers that really complement and match the students that they are instructing in our schools. We want to increase the number of teachers of color and the diversity of our teaching pool. So $6.7 million in new programs for that. Mental health. This is a topic that I hear probably more about when I'm traveling around and visiting schools than any other topic. When I hear from small rural school districts, from urban and metro districts, no matter where they may be located in the state, that they are struggling with increased numbers of students needing some mental health counseling or assistance, I know we have an issue. And I'm pleased that we are able to devote almost $5 million, $4.9 million in a very innovative program developed by our intermediate schools. These schools address our highest risk students, and students that really also need a great deal of support with mental health. And so we're going to provide mental health providers right into those school settings and embed that along with their educational services. And I hope it really provides a pathway for a new model for us in dealing with what's called our level 4 special education students. There is $31.1 million in new funding for early learning programs, a 20% increase in early learning scholarships, a 12% increase in school readiness, including an expansion of school readiness dollars to charter schools. They have not been eligible for that funding in the past, and we are extending that to charters in this. There is also a $1 million increase in ECFE. So just a few other highlights on some of the things in the bill. We do repeal the governor's voluntary pre-K pilot program, which was rolled out last year. It's actually in the schools, a limited number of schools, 74 right now. But what we do is we replace that funding with equal amounts of school readiness. And it's important to note that school readiness, something that all school districts have, but these 74 will get those pre-K dollars replaced. School readiness is a much more flexible statute, much more flexible program for schools to provide these early education learning experiences. So those 74 schools can continue operating their program as they currently do if they wish, or they would have the flexibility to make some changes if that suits the young learners in their area. We do propose the closure of the Perpich Center for the Arts Agency and transfer the core function of arts outreach and education in a new division within the Department of Education. We would devote $400,000 to that effort to make sure that there are arts experts who are providing outreach to all of our schools. That's something that hasn't been happening recently from Perpich, which is one of their missions. So we want to make sure that that mission is reinvigorated and continued. We also would convey the Crosswind School, which was part of the East Metro Integration effort and district, and is currently under the direction of Perpich. We would transfer that to a school that would be district that would be really more able and capable of running the Crosswind School. We do reduce testing by removing the state mandate for all schools to offer the ACT and SAT to all students, but we would make sure that funding is available for all low-income students to take either the ACT or SAT, it would be their choice, to make sure that the cost of those college entrance exams would not be a barrier to a low-income student for taking that test. We established a new Director of Early Learning and Development to provide much-needed oversight and coordination over our early learning programs. It's really kind of a good problem to have when we now have hundreds of millions of dollars in various programs and funding streams going into making sure we are preparing at-risk young children to be ready for kindergarten. But as these programs have sprung up, there's really been a lack of oversight in terms of knowing how families or programs may be braiding or combining these various funding streams, and to knowing how many of those may be going to an individual child. These are questions we need to be able to answer so that we can know how best to invest in the future for maximum efficiency and reaching all of the children who need these excellent services. And with that, I think I will allow our chair of the Education, Innovation, and Policy Committee to tell you more about the policy provisions of the bill.
She will yield. Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. The intent of the Committee on Education, Innovation, Policy this session was to restrain ourselves so that we could give districts and charter schools an opportunity to catch up. As many of you know, we've added a lot of policy, some of it mandated in the past few sessions, and it's always good when we allow our school districts and charters to take a breath and get more acclimated to all these new policies that we've created. The base part of 890 is House File 1376, the policy bill that came to us from the Department of Education. In addition, there are other policy items that were added in the Education Finance Committee. Members, in Article 1, probably the highlight is a legislative study group to review Minnesota's school finance system and to make recommendations that are more equitable and efficient for our districts and charters. In Article 2, a new creation that allows online instruction during inclement weather. We also have the addition of Aaron's Law. It is not a mandate, but it permits school districts to include child sexual abuse prevention instruction in the health curriculum, and you may hear later from Representative Bennett, who carried that bill. We have added a dyslexia specialist within the Department of Education. Very important, as we know, we have more and more children who are diagnosed with dyslexia, and it's a very vast spectrum, and so it's important that we have a specialist in the department. We have Representative Thiessen's definition or clarification of the definition of cultural competency. We have Representative Loon's removal of the gag rule on PSEO so that now institutions can advertise to families and students that they can take college credits while in high school, and that cost will be covered by the state. I had a provision that codified the innovation pilot projects that have been in session law for some time. Representative Lee qualified in his bill that students who are under the age of 22 still qualify for early middle college. Members, this helps our new citizens to the United States and to Minnesota as they're learning English and working to earn their high school diplomas. We have updated the FIED standards so that they are now in line with what is across the nation. The Society of Health and Physical Educators, SHAPE, has determined what those standards would be, and they've been adopted from the National Association of Sport and Physical Education. We also make it so that students in non-public schools are eligible for bilingual and multilingual seals. That's policy that we adopted about 4 years ago. We also have a better definition for concurrent enrollment, and we clarify that charter schools must qualify, or comply, I should say, with the Pupil Fair Dismissal Act. Finally, in Article 2, we also have legislative approval required for the state's ESSA plan, which, as you know, the department is working very hard to create. In Article 3, again, we have Representative Lee's summary data on teachers and administrator preparation programs that now must be disaggregated by race. We think that's very important as we work to improve our percentage of teachers of color across the state. Also in Article 3, we have Representative Loon's last in, first out repeal. As you recall, members, this allows districts to negotiate an agreement between the bargaining unit and the school board for those times when layoffs must occur. We also have in this bill, in Article 3, the expansion of Grow Your Own. When you hear this term, members, think about the fact that within our school districts, we now have programs that can develop teachers on site. And we think this is exciting for paraprofessionals, parent volunteers who may want to pursue this. This was Representative Fenton's bill, and it's going to help us a great deal, I think, in expanding our teachers. As you heard Representative Loon note, we have a teacher shortage. We have the expansion of the Q program from Representative Poston and additional funding from Representative Fenton for the Principals Academy. In Article 4, we have a couple of provisions from Representative Thiessen. This is the special education section of law, and the training that it will now clarify how special education teachers serving on IEP teams deal with cultural competency. We also have Representative Thiessen's bill allowing third-party billing for qualifying services that include required special education evaluations. There's also a provision of mine that's included for the department to study the use of assistive technology, which, as many of you know, is very important to our special needs students and young adults. And we think it's a high time that we learn from the department how extensive assistive technology is used in our school districts. In Article 5, a new provision, again coming from Representative Thiessen, that directs the Commissioners of Health and Education to develop a model plan requiring school districts to accurately and effectively test lead in water in our public school buildings. In Article 6, we have Representative Krisha's school district allowed to contract for school service food service vendors for up to 4 years. And members, I think other than Article 10, in which we have Representative Jessup's provision that would remove a name brand in reference to our GED and replace it with high school equivalency. That's a pretty comprehensive policy bill, but I believe that it's holding districts and charters harmless, that we are not going to expect them to have to do too many or any new things so that they can get used to the standards and the testing of the standards and to the new ESSA plan. I mean, there's going to be a lot on their plates regardless of what we do. But thank you, Representative Loon, for letting me present the policy provisions.
The member from Freeborn, Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, first I'd like to say a big thank you to Chair Loon and Chair Erickson for all their work in this, the committee staff as well, and members on both sides of the aisle. It's been a real pleasure to work together this whole year in committee. We heard many, many good bills and good programs. I would like to highlight two specific components in this bill that I'm especially fond of and are near and dear to my heart. And one of them is a program called Reading Corps. And I had a lot of experience with this while teaching elementary school in Albert Lea. Reading Corps is a program that comes in and helps children who are struggling with reading, young children between kindergarten and third grade. What I especially love about this program is it's very cost effective. It has high fidelity in the way they run this program. It's run very, very well. And it's also evidence-based and data-driven, which we all know education programs especially should have those characteristics. So I'm happy to see some funding in our bill for that program. The other one that I would like to mention, which as I studied the subject that Aaron's Law concerns, I was happy to hear about Aaron's Law, but it was very, very disheartening and saddening to learn about what's happening in our country with basically what I would call a silent epidemic that we are experiencing, and that's the sexual abuse of our young children. I'm not sure, members, if you're aware that there's a national study that shows that 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys are victims of sexual abuse. And it's something that we unfortunately do need to deal with. It's incredibly, obviously, difficult for those children, and it affects them for their entire life. So I'm happy to see that Aaron's Law is in this bill. What Aaron's Law does is teach personal safety or personal body safety once a year in the schools. It's an encouragement, as Representative Erickson said. It's not a mandate. But this gives children the ability to speak up and tell somebody if they are being abused. It tells them to know the difference between good touch and bad touch, good secrets and bad secrets, and it gives them a voice. Again, not a mandate, but an encouragement. 1 hour a year to give our children a voice. So I honestly think this is one of the best components in this bill among many other good ones, because I really think it's going to make a huge difference for our young people. And thank you for having this in the bill. So looking forward to hear more about the bill. Thank you.
The member from Meeker, Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'd like to just highlight one item that is included in the bill, and that is the creation of a legislative study group to review Minnesota's school finance system and make recommendations to make it more equitable and efficient. We have a complex system of how we fund our schools in Minnesota, with categoricals and compensatories and formulas, and maybe this is the best we can do, but I don't think so. And I know that this has been looked at in the past, but I think it's time to do it again. And I'm asking that we can put this group together to study how we finance our schools and to make recommendations on how we can do it better.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Kresha moves to amend House File Number 890, the third engrossment, and the amendment is coded A67.
I recognize the member from Morrison, Representative Kresha, to introduce your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And this is an amendment that is very localized. It will help the school district surrounding Eagle Valley, which is actually in Representative Poston's area as well. But there is a school that is facing hard times, and there's a possibility they may go through a dissolution. And if that happens in our statute, we have a problem where the surrounding schools will lose operating referendum capacity. So this fixes that. It holds those school districts harmless, and it's something that I'll be back again next year visiting on a statewide, so that if other schools go through this, they aren't faced with the same hardships. And I would encourage a green vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any discussion on the A67 amendment? The member from Hennepin, Representative Loon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just would view this as a friendly amendment and support it. These occasionally, from time to time, these issues come up, and if we can sort of ease the process when a school district is dissolved and maybe there's some consolidation going on, it's a good thing. So I would encourage support for the Cretia amendment.
Any further discussion on the A67 amendment? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of adoption of the A67 amendment signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Representative Sandsteed offers the following amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. What my amendment...
Sandsteed moves to amend House File Number 890, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A57.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Sandsteed, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm very eager to share my amendment with you. What my amendment does changes nothing fiscally for the state, but it will have a significant impact on the providers. It is reinstating the Pathway 2 scholarships that have been eliminated under current statute. Pathway 2 scholarships, Pathway 1 and 2 scholarships both require early learners to take a pretest. And what we have found with Pathway 2 scholarships is that those students score lower. Pathway 2 scholarships really get at the heart of the most disadvantaged, the most at-risk students. Pathway 2 is very, very important for programs in family-based, center-based, school-based programs, Head Start programs, ECFE, ECSE, VPK, which is currently in practice, Montessori schools. The following schools have already indicated without Pathway 2 funding, they are at risk. And these include Lancaster, Hendricks, Ivanhoe, Lind, Truman, Lyle, Ellsworth, Chicao, Alberta, Browns Valley, and Butterfield. And again, Pathway 2 programs serve highly diverse populations, including a majority of non-English speakers. 70% of our Hispanic families are receiving Pathway 2 scholarships. I would ask for your support in reinstating these scholarships, as they will impact these programs significantly. And while we may hear things that this bill provides choice, by eliminating Pathway 2 scholarships, you are not providing choice. You are eliminating and restricting choice. And I would ask for a roll call.
Roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion on the A57 amendment. The member from Hennepin, Representative Loon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, I would oppose the Sandsteed amendment, but I appreciate my friend on the committee for offering the opportunity to have this discussion. Members, I want to bring you back to when the scholarship model was created, a model of mixed delivery quality early childhood programs was created. It is now known as the Minnesota model. Other states across the nation are emulating what we do. But when this was created and piloted and tested, the concept was have a variety of quality programs that we know prepare young children to be ready for kindergarten, and empower low-income parents through a scholarship with the choice to decide which program best suits their children and their family. That was the concept piloted, it was researched, it is data-driven, and that's when we embarked on this scholarship journey. The Department of Education decided when the scholarship funds were allocated that they were going to divide the pot of money in half and allocate half of it to programs, and that's Pathway 2, and the other half in Pathway 1 would continue to be really empowered by parents. Parents would receive their scholarship and decide where they wanted to use that for their young child. I think we really need to get back to this system. It doesn't reduce the amount of money and support for early learning. All of that Pathway 2 money will be in the scholarship fund. What it does do is reinforcing the notion of providing for kids, funding kids, not programs. Schools have excellent early education programs. I have no quibble or debate with that. But we should be allowing parents maximum choice. And when the dollars go into a Pathway 2 and directed to a program, a parent loses their portability with that money. A Pathway 1 scholarship follows the child. Just like when we have K-12, if you want to open enroll in another school, that money for your child follows wherever your child goes. Pathway 2 money stays with the Pathway 2 program. So if a family has some kind of circumstance where maybe their family is uprooted and has to move, maybe a job change, a housing change, the money doesn't move with them. And they are locked out of a scholarship for an entire year. That is not acting in the best interests of our young children. With regards to quality and outcomes, again, school programs are great, and 30% of Pathway 1 scholarships, when parents choose, 30% of those choices are either at a school-based program or a Head Start program. So they are choosing those. But there is from that study that was done, looking at differences of children served in 3- and 4-star rated quality programs, the highest ratings, there is no statistically significant differences between children attending those 3- or 4-star rated programs, whether they be Pathway 1 or Pathway 2, once you account for certain demographic differences. It's not statistically significant. So let's reinforce choice. Let's reinforce the fact that schools are great providers. Parents are going to choose them, but let's trust parents to make those choices. The Pathway 2 money, just to be clear, is not an entitlement that is guaranteed to schools. It is a grant program that schools must apply for, school-based programs, and it's funded over the biennium. But it is not guaranteed. It is not an entitlement. So let's preserve parent choice, and let's get back to making sure that the program operates as envisioned. And that's all the Pathway 1 versus 2 argument is. And I would oppose the Sandsteed amendment.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Sandsteed, thank you for bringing forth this amendment. Members, if we want to affirm parent choice, we have to make sure there are choices for parents to have. When the department reviewed the Early Childhood Scholarship Program, they found that 86% of the families receiving scholarships, Pathway 1 and Pathway 2, got their first choice. 86% got their first choice of provider. House File 890 damages parent choice and the quality requirements that we expect providers to adhere to receive public money. There are 1,897 Pathway 2 eligible providers in Minnesota, in every community. These are family-based childcare, they're the private centers, they're Head Start programs, and they're public school programs. And parents choose them because they're there and because they're the choice they want. The research shows that our most challenged youngest learners As Representative Sandsteed indicated, those who are coming from homes where English is not the first language, but we want them speaking English when they walk into that kindergarten door, do best in Pathway 2 programs. The research shows that Pathway 2 is the most effective program for the most challenged learners. We need to preserve the parent choice that we have in the program today, make sure the choices are there, and vote green on the Sandstedt amendment. Thank you.
Other discussion on the A57 amendment? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 56 ayes and 73 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There is another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Davney moves to amend House Bill number 890, the third engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A66.
Recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Davney, to introduce your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Members, the A66 amendment seeks to reestablish links between two of our funding streams in our education financing and the general education formula. It seeks to preserve early childhood family education funding and the compensatory education funding that serves the needs of our most low-income students. So, early childhood family education is Minnesota's unique program reaching out to the moms when they're pregnant, to the moms and dads and children from birth through age 5. It does so regardless of income and in the local communities where our families are. As any of you who are parents know, babies don't come with instruction manuals. But in Minnesota, they come with expertise and support at the public school down the block. And what I've found is just when you think you've got it figured out with the first one, the second one's different. And ECFE is there for you. House File 890 also threatens compensatory education funding. Funding that targets low-income students where actually our greatest possible return on our education investment is. This is money that's dedicated for things like lowering class sizes, providing students with longer school days or weeks or even school years, funding remedial education in reading and math and other core academic subjects if a student has fallen behind, and implementing programs to help keep kids on track in school and get them across that line to high school graduation. So what does it mean when we delink early childhood family education and compensatory education from the general education formula? It means in this bill that districts across the state will lose money for ECFE. It means that many districts will lose money for their programming to support students coming out of low-income families. It's a shift in the bill to try to cover the low spending target that the majority provided for our public school system and students. And maybe most critically, members, it demonstrates that we, as this House, are unwilling to commit to our state's youngest families and lowest income children that Minnesota stands behind them and assure them of educational opportunities going forward. Who pays for these cuts and this lack of commitment? Well, our lowest income families and their children across the state. But a number of school districts across the state will lose money under House File 890 if we don't pass the A66 amendment. Certainly the urban core, where I have the privilege to represent, but suburban districts, Burnsville, Osseo, Columbia Heights, and others. And in greater Minnesota, Albert Lee, Black Duck, Cloquet, Park Rapids, Wilmer, and others lose money under the provision in House File 890. Who gains from delinking these revenues? Only the low target the majority gave the chair for education funding. Mr. Speaker, I'd ask for a roll call. Members, I'd ask for a green vote for Minnesota's families and children. Thank you.
Roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. The member from Hennepin, Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak in favor of this amendment, and I'd like to thank Representative Loon for her tireless championing of early childhood education. I know she has been for years and years, and I really, truly do appreciate that. And I appreciate that little bit of increased funding to ECFE, but I really, really am concerned about delinking this formula. I'm concerned because I've seen what it looks like when a school district is struggling to fund these programs. My husband and I have 3 kids. We went through ECFE with all of them, and I share Representative Dabney's comments that all 3 of ours are definitely different, and we needed all the tools that we could get as parents to help raise them. And one thing that I learned in ECFE too is sometimes that's the first place a parent actually gets engaged in their child's education. That may be the first time, and once they're engaged in that education, they're hooked. They're hooked, and they're there for that kid through elementary, through high school, and whatever comes beyond. And we can't afford to lose that. We need to engage these parents right away with their children's education. Hopkins School District, for a very long time, has been very invested in early childhood. I've watched them struggle through the lean years to fund these programs, cobbling things together, and having the formula linked with ECFE has given them that stability to keep providing these programs. And they need that stability because we're not always going to have a champion like Representative Loon here for early childhood. And delinking this formula in those times when our economy turns down, we're going to go backwards. We're going to go backwards, and we're going to miss those years of investment in those youngest learners. And you know what? Kids don't have a rewind button. We can't go back and fix what we don't invest in. So please vote yes on this amendment.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the Dabney Amendment, and I specifically rise in support of the Dabney Amendment in support of Native American students all across the state of Minnesota. Native American students will be impacted, dare I say, more than anybody else by the House Republicans' education bill, and I would say negatively impacted by the bill. When we look at the districts who will lose with regards to the targeting compensatory, it is the districts with the highest concentration of American Indian students. So Red Lake will lose $26 per student per year. Pine Point, $27. Net Lake, $9. Cass Lake Bena, $29. Monoman, $26. Waban-Ogama White Earth, $11. Browns Valley, $14. Kelleher, $14. Onamia, $16. And Deer River, $12. Per student. That is per student per year. So when I think about the challenges that Native folks face every day. You know, I represent St. Louis Park, and we have an increasingly growing number of Native students in the district that I represent. But I also am an enrolled member of the White Earth Nation and a proud member of the Native Caucus within this body. And it is my opinion that when we look at these, right, we look at the districts that will be impacted the most, these are also some of the districts with the highest percentages of students on free and reduced price lunch. These are children who are facing poverty, who have systematically been left out of the educational system, both by the federal government and here in the state of Minnesota. And I'll speak later on the cuts to the Bureau of Indian Education schools. But in this moment, I rise to speak in support of my colleague Jim Davney's amendment, because it's what we need to do to make sure that we are not leaving Native American children and their families behind. Yesterday, Representative Loon said that we are here to give each child what they need. This amendment helps give each child, Native American children specifically, what they need. Please vote yes. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise also to support the Davney amendment and to take off one from what Representative Flanagan just said. We've heard a lot throughout this session and leading up to session about how much you care about racial disparities and equity. And one of the ways we can address racial disparities is to actually look at the impact of the legislation that we're putting forth, not just the intent. And the impact of this delinking disproportionately harms Native students. Now, many of you know that I grew up in northern Minnesota. I attended Cass Lake Bena Public Schools, Independent School District 115. I graduated with 35 other students. Very small town, 13 miles east of Bemidji in the heart of the Leech Lake Reservation. It's Representative Bliss's district. Now, at Cass Lake Bena, even back when I graduated, breakfast and lunch is free for everybody, because so many kids qualify that that's just how it ends up working out, that it just makes more sense to do it that way. And at Cass Lake Bena, most of the students are Native, 90%, 90. And at Cass Lake Bena, these Native kids, many from families who don't make a lot of money, don't usually score so well on those tests. That's where we see those disparities. I'll also note that there are no private schools. There are no opportunities to make use of scholarships in Cass Lake or Bena. And these are the disparities that we keep talking about, racial disparities. And this change in the formula will hurt these Native kids in Cass Lake Bena and the other districts that Representative Flanagan mentioned. Cass Lake Bena more than any other district. And so I felt compelled to stand up and speak for those kids, because I was one of those kids. It's a really small town. We talk about how much we care about all Minnesota kids. Well, that's what we're talking about. That includes Native kids. What matters is the long-term impact of what we do, not our intent at the time, not the buzzwords about equity. It's the impacts of what we do. And this will disproportionately negatively impact Native students long-term. And so I hope, Representative Bliss and some of the other representatives that represent these districts where these Native kids live, that you're listening. Because saying that you want to address disparities and equity, that's exactly what this amendment does. So please vote yes, please, for Representative Dabney's amendment. Thank you. Miigwech.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not on education committees, but this is something that I often get on, talk about how we have to put things in historical context. And so I want to just point out that in Minnesota that it wasn't until 1985, and this was before gaming, that the courts had to intervene. And at that time in 1985, municipalities were not providing municipal services to tribal members. Tribal members could not vote in local municipal elections. So that means if any of you remember 1985 driving out to Shakopee or to Prairie Island, dirt roads, no sanitation services, they didn't pick up garbage. So that meant, septic tanks, meant housing in very substandard conditions. But it took a while, and it was an Eighth Circuit opinion that said that the citizenship, that under that tribal members were citizens of the state, and they were citizens of the municipalities where they resided. And so they were entitled to the same services that other residents of those municipalities were entitled to. And so when you think about education, providing services, providing funding resources to students that live on reservations, I mean, we have a history of shortchanging students, of not funding service, thinking because whatever bias about not paying property taxes or that somehow, that you can't provide services unless you assert jurisdiction or the counties will attach certain conditions. And so that back and forth that continues today, that you're not going to provide services unless you pay for it, and so that sort of equal protection is missing when we're talking about a lot of state services that we all take for granted, and that applies to education as well. And so that is just a little bit of putting things in historical context. So thank you for listening.
Further discussion. The member from Hennepin, Representative Loon.
Thank you, members, and I'm going to urge you to oppose Representative Dabney's amendment. And I want to address some of the comments made by folks who have argued in favor of it, just to make sure you understand why the provisions that are in the bill are in there. And I also want to thank Representative Joachim for your kind remarks. I do feel strongly about little kids and making sure we're getting them ready for kindergarten. So we have changed, or proposing to change, how we fund compensatory revenue, or how we provide funding for kids from low-income families for our schools, and just the increased portion, again, for this year. So under the current funding formula, and bear with me because school funding is pretty complicated and there's a lot of moving parts to it, but the basic pupil aid that is provided, the 1.25% increase each biennium that's in this bill, there are various pots of money called categorical funding. And one of them is called compensatory, and that again, as I said, goes to children whose families' incomes are low in that they qualify for free and reduced price lunch. And this funding stream was created a long time ago, and the notion was to provide support to schools with children from low-income families to help make sure that they can achieve on par with children from higher income families to help reduce those disparities. But in reviewing the program, and we had a hearing or two about it and have looked at this for a number of years, we're not moving the needle, unfortunately. If you look at the MCA scores, because that's something that is a test, a measurement given across our schools so we can compare various schools, but if you look at that, for kids that fall into that free and reduced price lunch score, the compensatory money is not improving their proficiency on how they're doing and their achievement. Reading proficiency in 2013, again, for free and reduced price lunch, children whose families are qualified for free and reduced price lunch. 2013, the reading proficiency for those children was 38.8%. In 2016, it's 40.9%. Now that's a 2-point increase, roughly. Those same children, math proficiency falls by about the same amount. Went from 41.5% in 2013 to 39.7% in 16. So while we're putting this funding stream out there, it is not getting results. So I am proposing that we take the compensatory money, and it would be the same amount if it was linked. It's about $22 million. Directing it out to schools according to the number of children that you have that fall into that income category, and asking schools to provide extended time services for those children. And why do that? Because we know it works. The Office of Legislative Auditor has studied this, and to quote from that, this is a few years ago, they measured growth on standardized tests, and students who attended extended time programs generally increased their test scores more than other students. They exceed expectations with compared to other students, and a large percentage of students who received targeted services, extended time services, experienced high growth, 29% increase in their math performance, 30% increase in reading, and more than 40% experienced medium growth. I know the achievement gap gnaws at every one of us. It is that horrible, ugly thing out there that we can't seem to get our arms around and can't seem to really make a dent in. This is an attempt to say, let's try something specific with this compensatory money and see if we can move the needle, see if we can help make a difference for these kids who so desperately need it. That is the purpose behind what we're trying to do. Now, I know there was discussions about the compensatory money for various schools. And yes, because we are not including the concentration factor in how we're sending it out, a poor kid is a poor kid according to how we would send this money out this time, that makes that particular run look unfair for some schools. But as I said, school funding is complicated. And it's really not fair to single out one particular funding stream when you look at what resources we're proposing to send to schools. So you all, I know, also have the district by district run of everything in House File 890. And I would ask you to take a look at that and compare. I think we do a pretty good job of trying to make sure that we're increasing funds for all schools, for all students. And again, it's an attempt to make a more specific approach to helping those kids who need it most. With regards to American Indian students, you know, this is a topic we spent a great deal of time on in the previous biennium in 2015. I think we had one of the first hearings really focused on the needs of American Indian children. We had tribal leaders really happy that we finally focused on that. And we took a step forward in terms of creating a specific aid formula for American Indian children. Previous to the last biennium, what happened was there was a grant program, Success for the Future grants. I want to say maybe $4 million, round figures. Schools would apply for it, but not everybody got it. It didn't go equally across schools, and so we changed it. And there is now a special aid formula, American Indian Education Aid, that was put into place. $18.7 million, that's in this budget, the baseline for fiscal year 18 and 19. That goes to every school that has 20 or more American Indian children in it, including the BIE schools. So we did make a significant step forward in trying to provide support. We also increased funding for American Indian teacher grants to try to make sure that we're encouraging American Indian students to pursue teaching so that they can be role models and help improve the educational attainment of American Indian children in Minnesota. It's something we take very seriously. So, while I know not every idea may be viewed as a good one from members, and I accept that, I just wanted you to understand the motivation behind the change that we're attempting to make. If we continue to do the same thing, I fear we're going to continue to get the same results. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got, as my aunt used to say. So let's try something new and see if we can get better results for the kids who deserve it and need it most.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Slocum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, I sent to all members a letter that I had gotten from the Minnesota Association of Charter Schools, because the one group that is truly left out, I believe, is the charter schools. These are public schools. These are choice schools. These are schools that we've all supported in various ways, and they've expanded the choice programs within the traditional districts too, just by being there. Delinking compensatory, what the charters have said is delinking compensatory revenue from the basic formula, as this will only deepen the funding gap between what students in charter schools receive versus traditional school districts. And remember, a charter school is considered a school district legally. The charter schools as a group will experience a net loss of $682,000 in compensatory revenue. The problem is that kids that attend charter schools do not receive equitable extended time revenue. They receive 25% of the extended time revenue, which amounts to $16.46 per student, which is inadequate for after-school programs, Saturday programs, catch-up kinds of programs that people here, including Chair Loon, who I greatly respect, have said are so critically important if we're going to catch kids up. Charter schools take more of our poor students than traditional districts, and they have a higher free and reduced lunch quotient when you take them all together. So if you really want to impact the achievement gap, we need to fund them equitably with traditional districts. And I wonder if some of the test statistics were, were done with math that included schools that had virtually no after-school or summer programs and had significant numbers of poor students. And they didn't have the opportunity to catch up because we didn't fund them. And we're going to continue. It was supposed to be a graduated step up in funding for extended time revenue, and it hasn't been. They haven't seen an increase in a couple of years, 25%. Shortchanged. Love them, hate them, they're here. Kids go to them. Kids that are not fitting, are not working out in a traditional district. You've got kids that have high needs. And I would just really like to see an equitable funding solution for charters. Then this morning, I got a note from Chair Loon. And she talks about the 2015, we included a provision to provide extended time revenue to charter schools. I told you, 25%, $16 and chump change. And that was 25% of the statewide average of funding for extended time. And what she said to justify this is that, well, the charters are going to get school readiness dollars if they have a kindergarten program. A number of charter schools just have a high school program. Or what about the ones that do just a middle school and high school? Again, they're left shortchanged. It's not fair. And at some point, well, we're seeing it in the statistics that don't change. And if we keep doing what we've always done, we're going to get what we always got. So underfunding them and then expecting them to achieve on the same level as funded schools just doesn't work. So I would urge, when we come back together over an education bill, which I'm quite certain we will be doing, I would hope that we could get something done for equitable funding for the charters.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And Representative Loon, thank you for walking us through your thinking and also doing that within the context of explaining some of the different moving parts that we have in our funding of schools and students. I will be the last to criticize anyone for attempting to think creatively outside the box, for making an earnest effort to redesign how we do what we do, including how we make appropriations for important public work. But you know, members, some things are simply not ready for prime time, and some things are not appropriate to do in an experimental way, and certainly not with our lowest income students. I would have preferred a much more careful vetting of this kind of concept. We're talking about the compensatory funding explanation that Chair Loon just ran through before doing what we're doing here on the floor. And by the way, members, I will also point out that there's an inconsistency in this bill relative to that explanation, because one of the other things we're doing in this bill is that we are making permanent compensatory pilots that we've been funding for a number of years. And I don't see the same kind of lens being used for making that funding for certain school districts permanent relative to what we just heard as an explanation for a failed, if you will, categorical. And so, you know, members, it's really important. We're talking about a statewide system. We're talking about principles that need to be applied consistently across our state. And when we differentiate them based on success and not based on some other unknown characteristic. Frankly, members, I'm not yet convinced that we can isolate to this one categorical as sort of the root cause or even the root driver for creating the kind of change that we need to have in our state in terms of gap closing and academic achievement. Why not look at some other categoricals? Quite frankly, why not look at the general fund formula? You know, that's what Representative Marquardt did several years ago when we created the world's best workforce, and we created a state accountability system that has very real consequences, not tied to a categorical, but tied to our main general fund formula. And we're going to be crossing that threshold pretty soon here in that state, in the state. And I hope that we can all hold to this concept of holding schools accountable and being very creative about how we do that with our appropriations, not just targeted for low-income students, but appropriations to all schools across the district. We'll see what happens in a year or two as those plans come in and we start to see, hopefully not a failure, but I suspect we're going to see some failures across the state. Members, let me tell you what the compensatory does do. What it does do is it provides strong supports for students, for the neediest students in our state. It provides strong supports that have been measured to show growth. Is the growth fast enough, big enough? Certainly isn't for me, but it's not true. It's simply not true to argue, and I'm not saying you're arguing this, Representative Loon, but I want to make sure that folks don't get this impression that taking away supports from students is how we're going to close gaps. That's not true. There's no research that supports that. And so, members, again, I am tantalized and I am anxious to wrap my hands around the experimentation that has been explained here. But members, I want us to do that responsibly. I don't think that we do that with the proposal in the bill before us. I can tell you this, the very communities that are impacted by this, these low-income communities, their students, they didn't ask for this. I can tell you what they're asking for. What they're asking for is stronger supports, more comprehensive efforts. There's even elements of those in this bill in isolated pockets when we talk about promised neighborhoods, for instance. That's a direction we ought to be going in. And so, members, we kind of wandered a little bit off of the Davnie Amendment, but you know, as Chair Loon indicated, these are interlocking parts, and they're related here. I don't think that the whole delinking, as we heard earlier with the ECFE, that doing that work is consistent with an experimentation that I don't think we should be doing, that we're trying to address through these amendments. So members, please vote in favor of the amendment.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Davnie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Loon, for walking us through the funding pots in education finance. You did a far better job than I attempted to do, and I think I'll also thank you for building apparently broad bipartisan consensus that if we keep doing what we've been doing, we'll keep getting what we get. But when we talk about thinking outside the box, it usually doesn't involve first emptying the box. It involves building on our strengths and thinking innovatively, as Representative Mariani just talked about. If we want to do innovative education work that respects the facts that kids growing up in poverty walk in to school each day with some challenges that they're looking for the community to respond to, there could have been funding for full-service community schools, a proven model here in Minnesota. Representative Murphy can speak very eloquently about how Duluth is implementing the model very effectively. Representative Hawley can speak to how these models can be implemented effectively, and there's no money for that. That's outside the box. That and the education innovation partnerships are outside the box, proven effective strategies. But members, we talk a lot about the importance of parents in education, and the bill walks backwards on parents. Early childhood family education, there's no better time to connect a parent to their child's education than when that baby is a tender, small thing in mom or dad's arms. There were a few of them around on the floor here yesterday. And compensatory education can only be used for certain things, but one of those things is parental involvement programs. So when we damage ECFE, when we damage compensatory, We damage the parent involvement we all give lip service to, but we damage in this bill. Members, I ask for a green vote on the A66 amendment. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 59 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 890, as amended.
Third reading. Discussion on House File 890 as amended. The member from Ramsey, Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have a few questions just very quickly. I think it would probably be appropriate to ask the author of the bill, Chair Loon, to yield.
She will yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chairperson Loon, a few questions here. So one of the provisions, one of the policy provisions in the bill has to do with MCA test taking tied to the amount received by schools for in order to receive the full amount of what's called, I think it's called targeted compensatory aid. If you could tell us very quickly what is the nexus between the targeted compensatory revenue and the requirement to have a certain level of participation of MCA test-taking participation in schools.
Representative Loon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Mariani. Thanks for the question. Including the MCA scores is one, not only an encouragement to make sure that schools are encouraging participation in the MCAs. It is an important measurement to know how all of our students are doing, and honestly, it's one of the measurements that identifies and keeps in front of us the achievement gap that we're all trying to tackle. And it is really taken from a concept that is embodied in literacy aid. So literacy aid is tied to MCA scores, and for children that don't participate, those opt-outs are scored as a 0, which reduces their allocation of literacy aid. So it's kind of a concept borrowed from that, if you will.
Mr. Speaker and members, thank you, Chair Loon. Let me just quickly share with members that it is the right of parents to be able to opt their students out of these statewide summative standardized tests. And so there isn't a conflict that's really, in many ways, being set up here by, in essence, punishing a school for a parent making a decision that they have the legal right to do under both federal and state law to opt their students out of participating in those tests. And the irony, members, is that when it comes to low-income students, there is a high rate of participation in those tests. The opt-out movement, if that's what it is, here and across the country, it is a movement that's really being exercised by upper-income parents, middle-income parents, and not really a whole lot by low-income parents. And so the irony here is that the choice of a middle or upper-income parent can result, the cumulative choices of those in a school can result in that school receiving less aid that's targeted for the low-income students, which are the students who are participating in higher rates in the test. And so, members, it seems to me that there's a real misfit here in terms of the policy before us. I'm wondering if Chair Loon would yield to another question, Mr. Speaker.
She will yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Chair Loon, there's another policy provision in the bill. Representative Erickson spoke to it. It might be more appropriate for her to respond, but it has to do with requiring the legislature to approve the ESSA implementation plan, which is required under the U.S. Department of Education to be filed by our state in order to then be in compliance with ESSA, which is our ESEA, federal law under which, I forget the figure, but $230, $250, $280 million a year come to us, from the federal government, mostly targeted again for low-income students, EL students, and other students. And so the federal government is asking every state to file their implementation plan no later than September of this year. And in the language before us, there's a requirement that that plan be approved by the state legislature before the state submits that plan to the federal government. Members, I don't know if you realize, but this is very unusual. It's really quite odd. There is a relationship between the US DOE, US Department of Education, and the state education, I think it's agency, SEA, which is what our Minnesota Department of Education is. There's no requirement in part of the federal government that we have legislative approval of the plan. And so I'm wondering, Chair Loon, if you can tell us, if you can walk us through how the legislature will approve this plan if it's due in September. And I'm not sure when the department is going to submit it, but I think it'll be closer to September than before we adjourn in May. If you could walk us through the process of how we will approve that plan if we're not even in session, number one. And number two, if you can tell us what do we risk, therefore, if we're, if as a legislative body, relative to the mandate in this bill, we're not approving that plan in a timely basis.
Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Mariani, I think it's best that I try to answer your question. First of all, the ESSA deadline is still a moving target. I know the department thinks they need to have it in by September, and if that becomes reality, I think what will be really important is that instead of our approving the plan, that we review the plan, and that's easily done during interim. We can call together our committees, and we can review what the commissioner is submitting, because we are the policymakers, and it is our responsibility to ensure that whatever is submitted to the federal government as our state and federal accountability system is one that we know will work in our school districts. And we found that when the department created the MMR, for which I was very opposed, that we brought about confusion for our school districts and for our charters, and we can't have that happening. So my only concession would be in conference committee to consider a review of it with the commissioner, and we can do that in calling a special meeting during interim. We don't have to approve it, but that before it's implemented, we keep that language so that before it's implemented, that we have the opportunity to again review it and approve it before it's implemented. So the timeline, I know the department is busy working. I do know that the world's best workforce is a constant topic. I talk to those who attend these stakeholder meetings meetings, and I think it's very important that we do that alignment, and I'm hoping that the commissioner is listening carefully, even though I know she's raised some objections in her letter to us. But the World's Best Workforce became our state accountability system in 2013, Representative Mariani. As you recall, you and Representative Marquardt brought forth that idea, and we need to honor it. I mean, why have it in law if we're not going to honor it? So, to answer your question, I'm not sure what the exact timeline is, but I do know in my conversations with Washington that the ESSA deadline is still kind of a moving target. So whether or not we're in session when the department submits its plan, or we need to have a special meeting during interim to at least review it, I guess time will tell.
Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Erickson. Members, there's a big, important difference between reviewing and approving. And I have chaired the policy committee in the past, and believe me, I am just as zealous as Representative Erickson or anyone else ought to be in this body relative to the proper authority that we are trusted with relative to the executive branch in terms of conducting the business of the state. And so I think having a review process, there may be some issues there, but I frankly think that's a good idea. The language in the bill does not say review. The language in the bill requires an approval on our part. And members, honestly, I don't know how we approve anything unless we are formally called together as a body to do that in order to meet the purpose of what USDOE is expecting and what is laid out here in the bill. Representative Erickson, you're absolutely correct about the importance of the world's best workforce relative to the ESEA accountability standards. You and I stand together on that issue in terms of our expectation that the plan that goes forward to the federal government in fact does align itself strongly with the world's best workforce. So I do hope if this bill goes forward from here, and it still has this language, that when it comes back, we're not talking about an approval process as much as a review process, or we at least adjourn in May with a date certain for us to reconvene prior to September 18th, which is not a moving target, folks. That is the federal deadline for us to get our plan before the feds. Representative Loon, I wonder if you could yield to one last question.
She will yield. Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Loon. There's another provision in the bill that walks even further back from some progress that we made a few years ago, where we set up the expectation of all students to be able to participate in a nationally normed college and career readiness exam. We settled on essentially the ACT, which is the dominant exam that students take in this part of the nation in order to do that. And for a brief window period of time, we as a state were providing that as a universal access to all students in the state, offering it and paying for it. And why not? Why not? If the purpose of our educational system isn't to be able to go beyond beyond secondary, even if it's just a certificate program at a two-year institution, then we're not doing the people of Minnesota right in terms of building the next generation of highly skilled Minnesotans that can keep us prosperous. In the language before us, however, we're backing off even further. We backed off of the universal access, and the language before us says that schools can reimburse low-income students once they take the test. That seems to me pretty foolish, members. Being low income probably means that paying for that test up front is going to be a real barrier. And we don't want to create barriers for students. We want to facilitate their process of going forward with their skill development, with their college choices, their career choices, so that they can be productive citizens in the state. And, you know, so members, I'm not, you know what, I'm not going to ask a question. I've stated my opinion on this issue, which is I think this is wrong-headed policy here. I don't know that it generates any kind of major, massive savings for us, certainly not any kind of massive savings relative to the size of our budget surplus that would even justify us, you know, taking something more away from students in our state. So members, I'll stop. I have questions about the BIE schools, but I think I have some other colleagues that are going to raise questions about the defunding of our Bureau of Indian Education schools. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you. Good evening, members. Normally when I stand up and talk about my schools, I like something positive, like KM earlier this month won their second consecutive wrestling state title. However, during the discussion of amendments, there was a discussion about underfunding of charter schools, and I looked through the little sheet we're given with the runs and noticed I stopped at 110 charter schools that have more funding than my home school district. And I looked at the regular school districts, and every single one has more funding than my home school district. So I looked at the bottom 13, the unlucky 13, the 13 least per pupil funded school districts, regular school districts in the state. 3 of the 13 are in my district. And in the past, we've talked about equity, but when you get school districts that are $1,400 a year per pupil, less than the state average, 16% less than the state average, and you get the top to the bottom, again, my home school district, and you're just barely half of what the top is being paid. We do need to look at the system that we've got. And frankly, I wish that we started an approach of where half of the increase went per student. We raised that floor. And then we looked at what kind of programs are needed and fund those programs for 3 to 5 years and go forward. Because we'd have to force to analyze instead of throwing it in. So I like the approach. I think the formula is broke. If it was working, we'd have the results decades ago that we need to give to our students. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring up that my school districts, when we hear about the unfunded or underfunded, they're at the bottom, and I'm well aware, and I hope that we continue to work, like in parts of this bill, to try and fix a broken system.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Freiberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, when I first heard that we have a $1.65 billion budget surplus, I got a little, that was exciting to me. I mean, I am a public school parent. I have a first grader in the Robbinsdale School District. And, I know the majority and my party don't always agree on everything, but I thought surely we could at least fund the formula to a point where it'll cover inflation. That's estimated to be approximately a 2.5% increase on the formula. This bill only does a 1.25% increase on the formula. So this bill will end up with our schools being underfunded, causing teacher layoffs, larger class sizes, and less resources for students. It cuts pre-K for thousands of Minnesota's earliest learners, depriving them of a strong start. Yesterday we heard the focus on, the backdoor approach to vouchers. Just giving everything away in taxes and not adequately funding our schools is kind of depressing to me. But I actually want to talk about something that affects my district a little personally as well that hasn't gotten as much attention here. And that relates to the Perpich Center. This bill would close it. This is both a school and an arts outreach center that spans the whole state of Minnesota. It's had some leadership issues that were outlined in the legislative auditor's report, but this totally goes way beyond anything suggested there. I do have a excerpt from the auditor's evaluation of it here. It does say that one option for the legislature is to eliminate the Perpich Center, but it describes this as the most drastic of the options. It said that the legislature should consider, if it does this, how best to support arts education in Minnesota schools. It says the legislature should carefully consider all other options before deciding to eliminate an agency and lay off many of its staff. It would need to determine what to do with the buildings at the Perpich Center, the Arts High School, and that Crosswinds now occupy. It describes this as the most disruptive option for about 100 staff and more than 300 students, especially if the schools did not continue in some form. And it was unclear whether the Minnesota Department of Education would provide arts education outreach and support comparable to what the Perpich Center is capable of providing. You know, there is something there's arts outreach in this bill, but by my calculations, it's sufficient for about 2 FTE, and that is nowhere near what the Perpich Center is capable of providing. You know, I've heard from so many parents whose lives have been touched by this school and students who graduated from there. You know, these are kids who don't fit in a traditional setting. You know, this appeals to the, you know, if you're artistic somewhat, you may not always feel like you fit in a traditional school setting. So having something like this available is truly a great option for many parents. There's a new board there. There's a new director who's from Luverne, Minnesota, focusing on expanding its reach so that it does a better job of representing the whole state. It's done that in the past, and I know it can do it again. And that's just kind of speaks to the issue with this bill. You know, this would close a valuable institution. It disrupts the lives of hundreds of students and families who go here, possibly just as a bargaining chip for down the road. You know, it's really distressing to me. The issues with the building have not been worked out. We've heard from the city of Golden Valley about the concerns that this building could sit unoccupied. There's no plan for what to do with it. I think this is a drastic option, and it just speaks to the general inadequacy of this bill. So I would encourage members to vote no.
The member from Rice, Representative Bly.
Thank you, Speaker. So I am concerned, it was briefly mentioned, about some of the testing references in the bill. First of all, there was mention made of reducing testing by taking out the ability for students to have access to the ACT or the ACT test. I think the provision there was not so much wanting to test kids more, but wanting to make sure they had access to that test so that they could find out if they could get into college. But I was disturbed by as was mentioned, I think earlier, about the need to have this testing done so that funding could go to some schools, and making sure that, for instance, the Perpich Center that was just mentioned, that enough students were taking the test there that we knew that they were going to be successful in life. And my background, I started teaching many years ago in a very small rural school, and I also rented a farmhouse where I lived out in the country, and my school board chairman was my landlord. Anyway, I visited with lots of the people in the community about schooling, and I really enjoyed the conversations I had with parents who guided the teaching I was doing. And in that particular school, parents would come in and watch you teach. There was lots of accountability in that way. But my background after that is mostly in what some might call alternative education. You might also call it progressive education. And if you know much about the history of education in the United States, there's been a kind of dialogue between progressive educators and what might be called conventional or classical educators. And progressive educators look very differently at this whole business about assessment and testing. And I recognize that when talk of testing came in, the kind of standardized testing they were doing, came about because we wanted to know, are those kids in poor communities, Senator Kennedy was a big advocate of this too, to make sure that we're not failing them. It was kind of proving what we already knew We knew we were failing them. And some critics of the standardized testing have said, why are we spending all this money and doing all this testing when all we have to do is look at the zip codes of kids and know whether or not they're going to get the schooling they need or they're going to succeed. And unfortunately what's happened, I think, and this is again the difference between progressives and the more classicals, who want to do a lot of testing and find out what's going on and then direct what's going forward. And some of it is an understandable anxiety about wanting to know whether or not your children will be successful and wanting to know if your tax dollars are going in the right place. But I have a lot of concerns about it because I think as we've looked at what's happened, it has critically changed our educational system. It's harder to be creative. It's harder to do things that are outside the box, as we heard mentioned. And so I sent around some handouts for you to look at. There's an interesting educator in Utah who I really admire. Lynn Stoddard is his name, and he's developed a system that he calls Educating for Human Greatness. And what he does is he says, we shouldn't be so worried necessarily about the end result, how we've shaped a student to be what we wanted them to be, but we should be really thinking about how can we best help that student discover who they are and the direction that they are their talents and their gifts will carry them. And unfortunately, I think the standardized testing notion leads to a standardized kind of way of teaching and leads us into a direction where we try to make sure all kids are the same. And sometimes we're not challenging kids enough. And, I worry about closing the Perpich School because I think it's a school dedicated to creativity. And although we'd like to see all schools be creative and have creativity in them, I think we find that some of these students who are really, that's where their life is going to take them. They've discovered that that's who they are and that's where they want to go. And that school at its best, not to say it hasn't had problems or bad leadership or whatever, but at its best, that's what it's trying to do. And if we try to say to these students, well, you should be like everybody else. You should take these tests that prove that you have the same gifts as everybody else. Now, it's not to say that math and reading and writing aren't important. They are. They're important tools for us to go forward. But the approach that Lynn Stoddard takes is he says those are important tools, but they can be discovered along any path if the teacher understands how to do that. And so the idea is really, when you start with a student, but to help them find their way, to help them find and discover who they are. And he mentions here some comparisons between the conventional education and Educating for Human Greatness. He mentions what he considers the truly important pursuits of school. What is education for anyway? Is it to prove that we can pass tests? Or is it to find our way and be a contributor to our society? And so in my reading of this, about testing and about, I've come upon a Chinese thinker who's now an American. He's an educator in Oregon who teaches there. Yang Zhao is his name. And he says it's really important that we think about what we're counting. And he says, numbers don't lie, but they can be used to endorse lies. The more sophisticated we are, the truly more difficult it is to assess who we truly are. We should treat any number that defines us suspiciously, because we're far more complex than that. And I worry that with all the attention to testing and determining that, we know if this person's going to be successful and this person's not, are we really looking at the right things? In our policy committee, our innovation committee, the Minneapolis school superintendent, the new superintendent, made a very interesting comment, I thought. Someone asked him, did he feel like, we were really truly preparing students for college? And he said, it isn't only, and he said, I, as a student going to higher education, realized that even though I could do all the math and the reading and the writing, I wasn't necessarily prepared. There were other things that mattered, that don't get measured, that don't get looked at. And again, back to Lynn Stoddard's design or his model, think about these things at the beginning. Think about helping a young person find their way in the world, discover who they are, discover what they're meant to do. Not that that doesn't change, but if they learn that skill about how to do that, how to figure out what's important to you, what matters, how to develop the skill of asking questions, being curious about the world, how to develop the skills of interacting with others and promoting the ability to communicate, how to develop the skill of having initiative, going after the things that you want to do. These are things that are hard to measure. Our standardized tests don't measure them. They don't tell us that, if the students have developed those skills. How do you find yourself to be a creative person? How do you get in touch with your imagination? These are important things, but we don't measure them. How do you develop your intuition, knowing when it doesn't seem obvious what it is that is important? And how do you develop integrity? How do you develop integrity? So I know understanding that whether or not people have achieved the basic kind of tool skills that we need to know to be successful in life are important. I'm not saying they're not. I know that testing's important. As a teacher, it's important to know how your students are doing. But there are times when giving assignments to students and seeing them come back, you can tell where they're struggling. You don't need to give them a test. But I'm not so sure that the standardized testing model that we've come to use, and I think there are a lot of educators who have come to wonder this very question. And I understand the federal government has its rules and whatever, but I think we need to be having these discussions about what kind of education system is truly best for our students. Since I came to the legislature, I've been using my alternative education experience to talk about trying to find ways to measure some of these things aside from the testing, the paper and pencil testing. And I haven't gotten a lot of support for that. Maybe because I don't explain it very well. But I still think that it's important. I think parents and teachers want to see us move in a different direction. And maybe if it's alongside the testing, we have to do that. But I don't think this bill gets us there, and I'd like to see us move in that direction. I hope we can think outside the box and think more about how we develop an education system that truly serves our students. Thank you.
The member for St. Louis, Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I appreciated Representative Quam's piece about, I like to talk about what's good about my community too. So let's take a moment and just talk about what is good. So I love Minnesota. I love Duluth. It's probably pretty obvious. So I love where we come together in places and in spaces across geography, across race, across gender, across all that divides us. Places where we come together and really show what we are as best as we can as a state. And I had the opportunity to see this recently. A few weeks ago, I visited our early education classrooms in Duluth, where I saw our education leaders beautifully blend together funding streams like the Pathway to have classrooms of little learners across income, across background, come together to get ready to walk into kindergarten on their first day with a level playing field. This is what's good. When a mother cries at the open house when she hears about the early childhood opportunities because she's so happy for what her kid could have, that's good. And so I believe we need to build on what's good. And our public schools in my community have had a glimpse of this. And I think we need to come together, not just to do this for Duluth, but to do this throughout our state. And so I handed out a map here that shows currently where we have 70 plus pre-K opportunities that are happening already. With the governor's proposal, that would have been expanded to all of the states, or all the counties here, 186 counties that would have the opportunity that I just described. Instead, the bill in front of us does the opposite of that. And I want to see a legislature that truly builds a stronger community, that unites us all, that gives us those opportunities. And so that's why I'm going to be voting no on this, because I want to build on what's good for our communities.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Murphy E.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Earlier this week, I encountered a woman talking about education and using the phrase, you just can't throw money at the problem being our kids in our public schools. And that is a talking point with a lot of staying power. And I heard that sentiment expressed today on the floor of the House in defense of the bill that we're debating, that we just can't throw more money at the problem, that we have to try new things. Over my tenure in the House, I've witnessed a number of new things, ideas or arguments about education funding. We've seen the borrowing from our schools to balance the state's budget, especially when we had significant deficits. We've seen the demonizing of public school teachers and public schools as a part of the problem that needs to be fixed, that we just can't quite rely on, especially those public school teachers. They're not quite getting the job done. And we test the heck out of our kids, and that's increased since I've been here too. Educators talking about a lot, testing, I think to justify the use of public dollars in our public schools. We'll try just about anything. You know, we are the place that favors parent choice, so we homeschool and we charter school and we private school. And the one thing that we seem unwilling to do is to fully fund our schools. And once again, this is a budget proposal that is not even keeping up with inflation, and we haven't caught up from 2002 until 2003. And I see the reaction over there, like there's some shock and surprise by that. And I guess we'll have to disagree about the math, but it is the sentiment I heard. I heard it 2 years ago. How much money can we throw at the schools? How much money can we throw at them? How much money can we throw at the problem of our public schools and our children? In this budget, the formula is under inflation. We're repealing pre-K. And I get that we've got a philosophical disagreement about pre-K, but man, if we can't figure out how to invest properly in early learning, including pre-K, we are not even abiding by the data and the research that we know that is going to get us off to a better start. We're flatlining ECFE. Can't believe we're doing that in this budget. I know that Minnesotans appreciate and understand that a strong school is central to a strong community all across the state of Minnesota. And as we are talking about and having a debate across the state about greater Minnesota and rural communities, you know, we're listening to my colleagues, Representative Flanagan and Representative Jamie Becker-Finn, and Representative Allen, Representative Davney demonstrate how this budget underfunds the schools in rural communities. And parents who don't think their kids are going to get a good education in a rural community aren't going to stay there. That's part of the problem. If we're not willing to fund our public schools, we're not willing to fund and bank on and bet on our rural communities. That's what you're doing with this budget. I have to say that, while I am, like most anybody else here, interested in new ideas to solve problems, I think we're overlooking the one thing we should do, which is to fully fund our public schools. It is our obligation in our Constitution to make sure that every child has access to a fair and equitable, high-quality education, and that starts with our public schools. And I think it's time for us to stop looking at the new shiny things, the delinking, the testing, moving the money around, and just fund the schools, support our teachers. They will do what's right, and our kids will get a good education, and with that, we will build an economy for our future. It seems so simple to me. This seems so complicated. Let's just fund our schools. Representative Loon, I appreciate your dedication here, I do. We disagree on early learning, we do. It's the way that is. But I think we could do better by our schools than this budget, in part because the target is too low. I'm disappointed about that. I hope we do better in the next round. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I just want to say to Representative Loon, just to thank you for your dedication, your leadership in the Education Finance Committee. And I truly believe that you have a commitment to the children around the state, and you want to do what's best and right for them, for all of them. So I just want to say thank you for that. But in saying that, I also would like to talk a little bit about compensatory revenue and the delinking of that. I want to talk about charter schools. I want to talk about ECFE. But I think I'm going to start with charter school, because there are many charter schools in my district. And often enough, I have seen young people who have not done well in the public school attend a charter school. And often enough, that charter school is just a high school where kids have been thrown out and thrown away and felt like there was just no way that they was going to finish high school. And these charter schools took them in and turned them around and gave them a second chance. And so it's really, really important that as we look at our schools, our public schools and our charter schools, that we create the revenue that they need to continue to be an integral part of our public school system. I love ECFE. It is like when we talk about engaging parents in to be the first teachers of their kids, to create a pathway where teachers are engaged in, where parents are engaged in a process and really become an investment in the lives of their children. That is what ECFE does. And delinking the ECFEs around the state is not a good thing. It truly is not a good thing. Because we do know how important parents are in our children's education. So I'm hoping we can find a way to make this right with the ECFEs. I think they're already underfunded. And here we are, cutting them more. And when we look at the ACTs and taking the ACTs and saying, well, if children and parents pay for the ACT test, we can, reimburse them on the back end. I think that's okay if you have money, if you're a foundation or someone who does charitable giving, that you can look on the back end and get that money back. But often enough, these are kids who want a chance to go to college, and they're kids of color, they're poor kids, they're on free and reduced lunch. And whether it's $25, $50, or $100, it is often enough something that a parent or a child cannot afford on the front end to do. So my hope is that, we have to look at who we're trying to reach. We talk about closing the achievement gap, and so we have to look, what does that mean for a student that's on a free and reduced lunch? It doesn't look the same for those who have money. And I know often enough when I stand up to talk, I always see myself as this state legislator. But today, in this moment, I'm going to focus on St. Paul, because this bill really does impact the St. Paul school system. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how the Target inadequately funds St. Paul schools. And some of the things that, Mary Gilbert, who is our school lobbyist here, just has a history of being engaged in the educational system and how we have invested in the past. And I mean, she just knows the ins and outs of everything. And so some of the things that she pointed out to me, as we focus on closing the achievement gap, closing the opportunity gap, is that you're right, we can't do things the way we've always done, but we can't do things in a way that is really closing up those gaps to closing the achievement gaps. And so we look at, within the bill, it talks about eliminating the commissioner authority to award Pathway 2 scholarships. This reduces spots for over 200 pre-K students in St. Paul, who are currently in the process of enrolling. 200 preschool students, where we know the importance of pre-K and the impacts that has for a child to be in a setting where they're getting quality learning so that they can enter kindergarten ready and prepared and reading by third grade. 200 pre-K students in St. Paul will be impacted. In St. Paul, we are unique, right? Because we have new Americans, immigrants, refugees, ELL students. We have a huge population of that within St. Paul. So St. Paul programs, they target those ELs and the free and reduced lunch and special ed students. And last year, using the Pathway 2 scholarships, we were able to have 120 pre-K homeless students in our program. 120 pre-K homeless students in our program. And by taking away and eliminating Pathway 2s, we eliminate that pathway. So talked a little bit about targeting cuts to children and families in poverty, especially in a time when we have a surplus. And by targeting cuts to children and families in poverty, this would not help close the achievement gap or the opportunity gap, or get students ready for college or career to grow our workforce. So the question that she asked Representative Loon, that I'm just going to share with you, is that how does reducing quality pre-K opportunities for our most at-risk and homeless students help close the achievement gap? Do we know of any private provider in St. Paul who will bus children, provide ELL and special education and transportation for homeless students in St. Paul? Do we know any? Because that is what we do in St. Paul. Eroding funding for ELL students, which is funded by compensatory dollars, help close the achievement gap. Cutting counselors and social work services that is funded through compensatory dollars helps close the achievement gap. Reducing Individualized math and reading instructions for students is funded with compensatory dollars, and that too helped close the achievement gap. Reducing support for college and school and other dual credit courses that are funded through compensatory dollars does not help close the achievement gap. Reduce services to support our most at-risk parents, funded through compensatory aid, does not help in closing the achievement gap. So what we do know about St. Paul is that St. Paul has been expanding the opportunities for all students. And we strongly feel that this bill move us, St. Paul, in the wrong direction. So I hope that, as we look at some of the good things like creating a pathway for more teachers of color in the classroom and other things that the bill do, that you take into consideration some of the things that I just spoke about in the ways that delinking the compensatory revenue impacts low-income students, ELL students, special education, homelessness, and parents in the St. Paul school. And I'm sure, if this is impacting St. Paul, that these same impacts is happening around the state, and that we can come back in a way that we can work to ensure that as we work on creating great educational outcomes for all our kids, that we are doing that in a way that supports, often enough, those kids that I've mentioned who are being left behind. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Kunesh-Podein.
Thank you, chairs. Thank you, members. I also would like to stand up and advocate for our Native American students. I'm a teacher. I work inner city as well as first ring suburb. And I've had a wonderful career of working with students and teachers. And this bill really is sort of a painful, hurtful bill because it doesn't reflect the hard work that we as educators do in order to meet the needs of our students. One of the things that this bill is missing is the funding that the governor asked for to continue to support 4 of our Native American tribal schools. And for those of you who don't quite understand that, there are 4 schools in our state that are actually federal mandated funded schools. And unfortunately, the federal government has never really taken care of them the way they should. If you understand the history of the school funding, Indian school funding in our country, I think you would all be pretty ashamed and pretty sad about how we have neglected our Native American children in our schools. I know this firsthand. My grandfather was born on Elbow Lake out in the Dakotas. His family had to leave their home when they built the dam and moved to Standing Rock. While he was at Standing Rock, his 2 older brothers were taken away from the family and sent to a boarding school out in Pennsylvania. And while they were there, they tried numerous times to run back home. And every time they got caught, they were sent back again. And the whole role of these boarding schools were to get our Native Americans to assimilate, to give up their wild ways, their heathen ways, to settle down and become like the white oppressors that were taking over their land steadily and steadily and steadily. Well, these 2 uncles of mine tried to escape one more time. And my Uncle Collie, while jumping trains, and keep in mind these boys were 12 and 14 years old, And after the third time they tried to escape, they were jumping the train to head back west, and my Uncle Collie slipped under the train and had his leg partially cut off. And so that was the last time they made them go back to the school. They returned to the reservation, and eventually my family, my grandfather's family, moved here to St. Paul. But what our Native American students deal with is an incredible history of historical drama. And it doesn't just go away. It stays with our families through generation. And unfortunately, the federal government has not stepped up and kept the promises that they made to our tribal sovereigns all over the United States. If you went and visited these 4 BIE schools, you would be horrified by what was there. You would never in a million years send your children to those schools. Fortunately, there's been funding going on, and I appreciate what's here in this bill for addressing our teachers of Native Americans and some of the funding. But what you don't know is that these 4 schools had been allocated $1,500 by the federal government for years and years. And it was not until, and that actually began in 1989, that they started to get this $1,500 per student. 2 years ago, the governor said this is obviously not sufficient, and he gave an extra funding for these schools. So right now, that is about to expire. And what's missing from this bill is that additional funding to keep those schools going. Change doesn't happen overnight. Change is slow. As a family of Native Americans, I know that change can be very, very slow, but it happens. And there have been improvements over time, and things are starting to improve, but when you stop funding them, it's just like taking them right back to where they were before. And this is something that we can't continue doing with our Native American children, and we can't keep doing this with the education of our Native Americans. So I'm going to ask you to not support this bill. I'm going to ask you to vote with your heart and in the minds of our students, not necessarily the fiscalness of this bill. And I ask you to support our children by voting no on this bill. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Flanagan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to speak to 2 things within this bill, and the first is to echo some of the comments that have been made by Representative Bly and Representative Freiberg regarding the Perpich Center. And the Perpich Center is in my district. The Perpich Center truly has created a space for many students who feel like they don't fit in anywhere else. Perpich has traditionally allowed students to fully be themselves while excelling academically and artistically. And I acknowledge that unfortunately those core values were under threat in the past leadership structure. That said, I'm pleased to see that the Perpich Center for the Arts is now in a turnaround mode. With a new board and new executive director, fresh leadership is working overtime to make changes. Many of the changes that were made recently by the Office of the Legislative Auditor just 2 months ago. I feel confident in the direction of these new leaders and certainly think we owe them a chance to make changes before we take the radical step of abolishing Perpich altogether and leaving families and students stranded. But here's the bottom line for the Perpich Center. It saves lives. I recently received a text from a dear friend of mine who said, before I went to the Perpich Center, I was the kid who failed all my classes. I was the kid who ate lunch alone in the art room. I didn't belong. When I went to the Perpich Center, everything turned around. I was able to be my full self in all of my weirdness. And this friend succeeded academically. And so I just want to lift up for a moment the Perpich Center and say, let's give them a chance. And I'm counting on Governor Dayton to block anything as extreme as a complete abolishment of the Perpich Center for the Arts. And then the last thing that I want to speak to is to build on what Representative Kunesh-Podein was talking about with regards for funding for BIE schools. When I walked in this chamber for the first time, I looked up. And I don't know how often you all look up and you see the carving here up on the wall. But it is a constant reminder to me of the history of this state, who we displaced, and who we need to continue to support. The fact that I am standing here as a Native woman who graduated from college and now is a state representative is a triumph. Not because of me, but because those who came before me. And the fact that we have Native women in this chamber and a Native man on the other side of the aisle means something. So when I look at this funding, and Representative Loon, I appreciate the increase in the supplemental funding that was made in 2015. I do. And I say, let's not stop now. When Representative Kunesh-Podein talks about the boarding schools and the children who are stolen, literally stolen away from their families, someone would knock on your door and take your child. To kill the Indian to save the man. That is one generation removed from my family. And that trauma remains. So when we look at this bill, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity that we are missing in this bill to continue the funding and to increase the funding for some of our most vulnerable students who have been neglected and who have been left behind consistently. We have a promise to American Indian students. A promise that was made by the federal government in exchange for all of this. We were guaranteed education and health care. The federal government has fallen short. We not need do the same, colleagues. We have an opportunity here to support our Native students, to vote in favor of the governor's proposal to give additional money to BIE schools. And you may say these are federal schools, but listen, they are all our kids. They are all our kids. So when I look at this bill, it's not enough. It's not enough. We've taken significant step forwards. We cannot take step backwards. The lives of our Native children depend on it. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Pryor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to stand here before you all today. Members, I want to start by going back to the beginning of this session. That was a while ago. It seems much longer, especially this morning. It seems like a long time ago. So the beginning of the session seems even longer. But at the beginning of the session, we had an opportunity to go to an event that was One Minnesota. And later in that afternoon, we did something that was about civil discourse. And in that experience, we talked about, we started by trying to get to the core of who we were and why we were here as representatives. And that's what we wanted to build on when we talked about civil discourse. Well, when I thought about that day, why I was here and why I ran as a state representative, I thought about my story. And my story is, it begins actually when my parents, my dad was interviewing for jobs. And we're talking about, this is a long time ago. This was 50 years ago. He was interviewing all over the country for jobs. We lived in suburbs of Illinois, Chicago. We went to Providence, Rhode Island. We went to Louisville, Kentucky. And he was looking for a good job. Then we went to Austin, Minnesota, because he was looking at a job at Hormel. And we looked at that community together, and that community, you know, it didn't have a lake. It doesn't have mountains. It doesn't have an ocean, obviously. It doesn't have green hills. But what it had was good schools. And that's the community my family chose. And they chose it for the schools. Now, there was another time where my husband and I were living in Charlottesville, Virginia, and he was finishing his residency. And, you know, at that point, he's all done with his residency. You know, he's not just a specialist, he's a subspecialist. That's how good his residency is. And we had a choice to live anywhere in the country, any metropolitan area in the country. And we looked at it, we thought about it, and we thought, you know what, let's go home to Minnesota, because they have good public schools there. Minnesota values public schools. Now, you know, we raised our 3 kids in Minnesota public schools, Hopkins public schools, by the way. And then my 3 kids now, 2 of them married young people from other states, but all 3 of them are married now, and they, again, are choosing Minnesota, and they are choosing Minnesota public schools. So I realized this is my core value. This was my parents' core value. This is my children's core value, to support public schools, because we think that's what Minnesota is, and that's what Minnesota does. We've always supported public schools. And I have people in my family that go to, our extended family, that go to private schools, to Catholic schools. And I have people in my district that are homeschools. But what I know we have in common is that we support public schools and the opportunity that public schools gives us. Now, what I've seen, though, is that this is a bill that does not support that core value. And let me say, you know, yesterday Representative Cornish said, think of your constituents and why you were elected. I know why I was elected. I was elected because people trusted me with their public schools. And so I'm looking at this bill and I'm saying, this bill doesn't do what I was elected to do. And I know this, I have evidence. We know it doesn't keep up with inflation. And in fact, we know that in House File 1716, signed by 35 Republicans here, the funding formula was supposed to be 2%. So we know that at least 2% is what we need to keep up with inflation. So I think that this does not do what we need to do for public schools. So one of the reasons I know it's because, you know, that was the target. And what we saw, though, was that, well, you know, it's because there's other priorities in this budget, priorities that do not include public schools. And one of the priorities is giving tax credits that can be used for tuition in private schools. Now, this might be a good idea, but this is taking money out of our budget and putting it into tax credits. It's taking those funds, those public funds, and putting it in tuition for private schools. Now, when this was presented to us in committee, they said, hey, this is a great idea. This will close the achievement gap. Now, I asked specifically, what evidence do we have that private schools funding that come from public credit dollars, what evidence do we have that that's going to close the achievement gap? And I actually didn't get an answer. But, you know, one of the articles you have here is something that talks about this idea. In the article they say it's vouchers, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, hey, low-income kids, kids that are disadvantaged, if only we could get you into private school, that would help and that would close the achievement gap. But the evidence says no. In fact, it says it's dismal. And they have 3 different recent studies. One was in Louisiana, one was in Ohio, and the last one was in Indiana. And so 3 different studies. And in Louisiana, where we know they have lots of school choice and they have lots of public funding for those school choice, there was actually a lottery because everybody wanted to get into this great private schools. And so all those poor kids, all the disadvantaged kids, all the low-income kids, they entered a lottery. And what they found is the kids that won the lottery, that went to the private school, they did worse than the kids that lost the lottery. So what I think we have is we have evidence that maybe this idea of getting more kids, low-income kids, into private schools, maybe this isn't going to work. And what we do know is really, really expensive. So what we have now before us, and we have a big picture here. We have not just this bill, but we have all the bills that we're looking with, starting yesterday with the tax bill, this morning with the transportation bill. And the transportation bill that we know takes money from the general fund, that's taking money from our public schools. And we're ending up with something that doesn't fund our public schools. And what I come back to is this is not Minnesota. This is not the Minnesota my parents chose to move to. This is not the Minnesota that I and my husband chose to come back to. This is not the Minnesota that my kids are bringing and raising their children in. This bill does not reflect the Minnesota values that we hold so dear. So what I want to close by saying is, just like the authors of House File 1716 know, 1.25 on the formula does not fund our public schools. Just like the authors of this bill that I'm going to drop today asking for 2.5% to add it to the formula, and this is not a prop, it's really a bill. This bill that I'm going to drop today, 2.5 with our authors, this is a bill that funds public schools. So the authors of 1716 know this, the authors of this bill knows this, and I hope after today, the public knows this. We need to fund our schools.
The representative from St. Louis, Representative Sandstede.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I promise I'm going to keep this brief. We've heard a lot of things today. First, I want to start by thanking Chair Loon for the work that you've done in our committees, and I want to thank the members of the Education Committee for all the hard work you've done. There's been good work. With that said, this bill still falls short in supporting our students on many levels. We've heard those, and I'm going to recap quickly. Early learning programs, pre-K, basic formula, students gifted in the arts, tribal schools, compensatory funding, adult basic education, full-service community schools, and the list goes on. We have to do better than this. We need to do better not because our schools are entitled, but because we were entrusted to do better. The formula we have right now is the formula we have. We have to work with what we have in the here and the now. And Representative Quam pointed out it's broken. I'll give him that. But it's what we have today. And until we fix it, we have to fund it. I'm going to say that again. Until we fix it, we have to fund it. There's too much at risk. Funding our schools is funding our students. I'm here advocating for the students. They are the ones that will pay in the end. And while I appreciate the work deeply, we have to go back to the table, and I ask for a no vote.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Carlson L.
Yes, Madam Speaker and members of the House, I want to comment a little bit, starting with some history here in the state of Minnesota that I always remember when we deal with education. 1940, the year I was born, The graduation rate in Minnesota, this may surprise some of you, but it was testimony before the House Education Committee a number of years ago, 40% graduation rate. 1940, 40% graduation rate. Turn the clock forward, Ronald Reagan is elected President of the United States, and he sets a national goal of 90%. Minnesota, at that point in time, we were at 92%. So what happened in that roughly 40 to 50 years to change that so dramatically where Minnesota, and I don't know where we ranked in 1940 relative to other states, but where we were when Reagan was elected president and he set that national goal, we were one of the top, maybe the top. In fact, I think we were the top in the country at the time, certainly near the top. Well, in 1950, a fellow by the name of Orville Freeman was elected governor. He had they didn't caucus Democrat, Republican, but basically that's the way it was. He had a conservative Senate / Republican Senate during the 50s. There was a brief time when the House was under Democratic control. But he did something for the first time really in state history, and that was to get funding for our public schools on the state level. It was a very modest amount if you read that history, but it was the one that got it started. After Orville Freeman, a fellow named Elmer Anderson from your side of the aisle is elected governor. He had a major focus on higher education, later served on the Board of Regents after he was governor. Both men distinguished service. After Elmer Anderson, I think Anderson must be a good political name in Minnesota, comes Wendell Anderson, Minnesota Miracle. Well, what was common about those three governors? They were willing to invest in education, and that really set the foundation for Minnesota truly moving forward, both in K-12 and higher education at the time. When I say set the foundation, a key part of the Minnesota Miracle was what we call the foundation aid formula. And that's where a lot of those investments were. And also, I used to say when I chaired the Education Committee that the Ed Finance Bill was a lot of patchwork because we, in addition to the foundation aid formula, we attempt to resolve other major issues that many of the members here today have talked about and address the needs that the foundation aid formula maybe in and of itself doesn't address. Well, one thing I want to point out is that I serve on Ways and Means, as do several members of this body, and when we were setting the targets, we had 3 amendments that night from our side of the aisle. The first amendment we moved was to increase funding for K-12 education. And just one part of it being that I'm focusing on the foundation aid, although it was a comprehensive amendment authored by Representative Marquardt, my seatmate here. But one of the things it did, we provided 2.5% and 2.5%. Good inflationary increase. That amendment failed. We moved the higher ed one, trying to provide better funding for our colleges and universities. Unfortunately, that one failed as well. So then we came back with another amendment, one that I happened to offer. And that was a comprehensive amendment, but a core part of it was, again, education. So we went with the governor's number, 2% and 2%. So we were getting closer to the rate of inflation. Unfortunately, that didn't prevail either. What I'm trying to say with this is that there was a better approach. We had a balanced approach to the state budget with those amendments, all 3 of them. They were paid for. I commented yesterday that one of the problems that I had with the tax bill was the sheer size of it, because it was starving out much of the rest of state government. And here today we're talking about how that tax bill starved out K-12, or we really should say early ed as well these days. But we did have a better approach. And unfortunately, the other side of the aisle said no. And so because they said no, I'm going to recommend from my side of the aisle, and I would hope a few of you would reconsider on your side of the aisle, a no vote, because we could do a better job for the children and the students of the state, do a better job for the economy of the state by creating a high-quality workforce. And I think we should be talking about how we build on the work of the three governors that I mentioned that really were very instrumental, and other governors followed and built on that. And I don't mean that we haven't had other good governors when it comes to education, but they were the ones that really laid the foundation back in the 1950s and 60s and 70s when you look at the three governors of that period of time. So I'm going to vote no. I would encourage a majority of you to vote no. Thank you.
The representative from Goodhue, Representative Haley.
Thank you, Speaker and members. I rise in support of this bill. And I rise to call out a couple things that I think have a lot of bipartisan support in the bill. I'm a supporter of what's called the EPC, or the Educational Partnership Coalitions. This is something that includes rural and metro, small and large schools across our state. The St. Paul Promise neighborhood, we heard from Representative Moran this evening. Northfield Promise neighborhood, Every Hand Joined in Red Wing. Austin Aspires, Representative Pryor. Partner for Student Success in St. Cloud, and the Northside Achievement Zone. I believe our schools do need help, and they do need government support and government funding, but our schools can't do it alone anymore. I grew up on Lake Pepin, part of the Mississippi River, and I grew up as a river rat. When you're trying to anchor your boat and the waters are calm, you can use one anchor. But the waters aren't calm for our families anymore. Education is complex. Families are facing a lot of struggles and needs. So when the waters get rough, the wind changes, the tide turns, Lake Pepin turns into a little bit like Lake Superior. And you need more tie lines. You need 2 anchors off the bow and 1 off the stern. So we need more people involved in supporting our schools. The schools can't do it alone. And we are doing something in this bill that calls that out and supports it. These partnerships have been recognized. Minnesota has been recognized as doing something nation-leading. The former CEO of Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, was here a couple weeks ago telling us, to our House members and to a Senate committee, that we are doing things that are nation-leading to address the achievement gap, to help families that are struggling with turbulent waters. And what we're doing that's so unique in these partnerships is we're telling the schools, we are here to help you. I started one of these initiatives with folks in our community. And what I did for the first year, I told my funders, you won't see any results for a year. Because for 1 year, I will listen and I will learn. Because we have to bring people together. Because there isn't just one anchor. There isn't just one solution to the problems that face us. And I went to PTAs, and I went to CEOs of businesses, and I went to summer programs, and I sat in teachers' lounges days after day after day, and when teachers were on break, I asked them what's working, what's not working, how can we help? And it took us a year of conversation after conversation after conversation, and we took all that data, and then we said, now let's get to work, because we have a picture of how we can help. And the CEOs helped, and the Ys helped, and the United Ways helped, and the parent groups helped, and the schools helped, the superintendents, the principals, the teachers. And we all came together, and that's what these partnerships are doing, bringing people, the communities together to make sure kids are ready for kindergarten, to make sure they're reading at grade level, to make sure they're progressing and their math scores are at standards, to make sure that they're graduating from high school, and to make sure that they're college and career ready. So I just want to call out, we're doing something very, very powerful. And to Representative Pryor's point in talking about Austin, Austin is one of those communities that isn't the same community as when she grew up and that needs more support. Austin has students where 50 different languages are spoken, where 29% of the students have a primary language other than English, where the median household income is $39,000 compared to the state average of $60,000, and where only 17% of the residents have bachelor's degrees. Those aren't calm waters, right, Representative Pryor? It's different than how you grew up. So let's rally around something that we are doing, because it takes more than just more money. It takes communities coming together. I thank Chair Loon for all of her work and Chair Erickson. I know this bill will get better as it moves for committee, and I ask for everyone's support tonight.
The member for Morrison, Representative Kresha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. Thank you, Chair Loon. One thing that I've learned about Chair Loon over the time that I've been with her is she's not afraid to take a stand. And the other thing that I've learned about her is she will lead, and she needs people to get behind her and follow. There's been a lot of good discussion, members. And I will tell you the easiest vote, I believe, today is a no vote. Sure, let's just vote no. Let's just say we need more. Let's just say we're not going to actually try to address and fix these problems. But from the time that I've spent in Chair Loon's office and with Chair Erickson, these are individuals who I believe are hearing problems and saying, you know what, let's take a bold stand. Let's try to actually do something about this. It's easy to drop a bill. It's easy to throw something in the general register and say, you know what, I've done this, and let's just throw caution in the wind. But what's really hard is to make a target work that addresses the problems we're facing. So members, if you really want to help Chair Loon and you really want to move these issues forward, let's give this bill 100 votes. Let's get this off the House floor. Let's show that we're going to take some steps, and let's have her back. I mean, it's one thing to say, you go fight, and then I'll be on there when it comes back, and hopefully it'll be in a little better shape for me. It's really hard to get behind somebody who says, let's take some innovation to the Senate. Let's show them where we're at. Let's fight for more education. And believe me, I've been in those fights with Chair Loon. She will fight tooth and nail. She's the one that stood up for $4 million to start the Early Childhood Scholarship Program. A program that was innovative, that didn't just say, let's throw money out there and see where it goes. It's a program that says, let's target the kids that need this, the ones that the data is telling us, the data that we've seen in reports time and time again that say target scholarships, quality programs, and parental involvement are the 3 best keys to success and offer the ROI. Solve those first, and then come back with a more robust public system. It's one thing to say, and I appreciate the governor. I appreciate the governor on preschool saying, let's just do a preschool program for everybody. But when you do that, you forget that there's a population of 30 to 35% that has to be addressed first. Remember, members, many parents and grandparents that have the luxury to read to their kids in those early years, 0 to 5, are doing more for those kids than any public school dollars we could throw at them. It's the kids that don't have that book being read to them. It's the kids that don't pick up that 80% of language skills early in life that we need to focus on. And we hear them. We hear them in committee. We hear the groups come in. We hear the foster care situations. We hear the children are disadvantaged. But are we listening? Or are we just willing to say, you know what, I'll throw a bill in there and we'll talk next year? Chair Loon's bill doesn't do that. Chair Loon says, in this bill, let's address the problems no matter how hard they're going to be, and let's keep fighting for them. We know the process. Then we go up against the Senate. Then we make our fight with the governor's budget. But we have to fight. And so with that, I go on and talk about this. But I will tell you, a simple no vote, yeah, I'm going to vote no because it doesn't do everything I say it does, is the easy vote. A yes vote that says, I'll line up behind the chair on this, and we'll take this fight and we'll build on it and we'll come back with a better bill, that's how good governance happens. With that, I'm honored to vote green, and I hope you will too for this bill.
The member from Dakota, Representative May Quaid.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, usually on Fridays, I'm not here, none of us are. I'm usually in a school in my district. It's usually a school that I attended or a school I played against when I was a kiddo. And I'm with the students there now. I'm with the teachers who teach there now. A lot of them were my teachers. And I talk to the kids and I say, what do you like about school? They love learning. Amina loves writing poems. Sure, it's poems about cupcakes because she thinks they're funny and they taste good. Her sister Hani loves to write poems about homelessness because she thinks it's sad and she wants people to feel it more. She feels like poems make you feel it more. Georgie loves music. He loves his recorder. He's terrible at playing it, but he loves his music class. So we've talked a lot about education, and we talk a lot about the achievement gap, as if all of these things exist in a silo, as if when students go to school hungry, or housing unstable, or with mental health issues, or with their parents having mental health issues, or their parents taking the bus to work every day and having that time doubled, or having housing deprioritized, as if those aren't issues we see in the classroom, and they are. And what we have done is we've asked our teachers and our educators in our schools to be nurses and social workers and police officers, mental health professionals, as well as educators. And we do all that while cutting their funding. And then we're confused about the achievement gap. We're confused as to why we're not getting the results we want out of our schools. It doesn't exist in a silo. We have voted on 3 other omnibus bills that directly impact these students we say we want to help already. And we have done some of the worst work we could do for those students already. This bill is another piece of that. This isn't even keeping up with inflation. It's literally the bare minimum that we could do for our students, and we aren't even doing that with a $1.6 billion surplus. Every group that came into my office, every teacher I talked to, every parent I talked to at the doors, I asked, what do you want to see different in education? A lot of ideas, but the first thing they'd always say, well, 2% to the formula, and then. It seemed like that was where we were going to go, that education wasn't going to be our partisan issue. We weren't going to make our students partisan. We're not even keeping up with inflation. That's not a bold stand. That's a terrible stand for our students. It's a disgraceful stand for our students. They deserve everything that we have, and it should have been our top priority. Not tax breaks for wealthy people, not shifting around money to try to make a really low target work. They deserved our best and biggest priorities, and they're at the bottom. I could never vote for this bill. This is not a bill that reflects our priorities as a legislature. It's not a bill that reflects the priorities of our communities all across the state of Minnesota. I cannot vote for this bill for our students. So I urge you to vote no so that we can do better. So that we can do better for our students, for their families, for their education, and for our future. Because I'm a product of our public school system, and I'm standing here today. And if we invest in our public schools, we'll have more of those students in this body. But if we don't, we're going to continue to see the issues we see. We're going to continue to struggle with these issues as if we don't have the solutions when we do, when we've heard the solutions. And the first one is fully funding our public schools. So I'm a no vote on this today, members, and I hope that you are too. We have to vote no for our students because we can do better. Thank you.
The member from Sherburne, Representative Knobloch.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. We've been here a while. I'll make it quick. I want to make 3 points. First of all, to Representative Pryor, who talked about school choice and the project demonstration that was done in Louisiana. That was an exceptional project in that a very significant number of schools in Louisiana decided to not participate. Significant number of private schools did not participate because of the unusual number of restrictions that were put into that program. If you look at other school choice projects around the country, actually there's an individual from St. Cloud, a Patrick Wolf, who's a PhD researcher at the University of Arkansas now, that's done all sorts of studies of this and generally concluded that school choice tax credits such as we are proposing do have a positive effect on students. And so, members, if you're interested in all sorts of research on this, you can Google his name and find a compilation of lots of good school choice research. Secondly, I've heard from several people talk about how we're not keeping up with inflation. Members, the biennial budget for the education budget that we're talking about was $17.4 billion for this biennium, 2016 to 17. We're proposing to increase that by over $1.1 billion to well over $18.5 billion. If you do the math, 1.1 billion divided by 17.4 billion, you're roughly at about a 6.5% increase, which is beyond the rate of inflation. Yes, the school formula, the general fund formula, is only going up 1.25% per year, but there's lots of other streams of funding that are in this bill and lots of other streams of funding for education. We've got significant increases in maintenance funding that are phasing in this bill that we've never had in the past. We've got other increases in funding, the additional transportation revenue that we've got in this bill, and a new funding formula that we didn't have in the past. Special education gets a 4.6% per year increase in this bill for both years, because that is, in fact, what is in our statutes. That's well beyond inflation. So, members, you can't just look at the general fund formula. You've got to look at the totality of the funding that's going to education, and in this bill, it is beyond the rate of inflation. Finally, I've got to respond to my friend, Representative Carlson, who talked about some votes we had in Ways and Means the other night, in particular a vote on the governor's budget. And I do need to bring it to people's attention that 30% of the Democrats on the Ways and Means Committee voted that evening against the governor's budget. And if we can get the rank and file DFLers, 30% of them, to follow us on that, we'll have a veto-proof majority, and we can pass these bills and get out of here. But I'm being a little bit facetious in that. But the fact is, 30% of the members of the Ways and Means Committee did vote against the governor's budget targets. So, members, I've made my 3 points. I appreciate the debate. I know there are heartfelt issues on feelings on both sides on this very important issue, but I respect the job that Representative Loon has done and is doing. I know her heart. I know the work she's done. This is a good bill. Please vote for it.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Davney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. Chair Loon, I think the debate today has reflected much of the debate that you oversaw in committee, civil, thoughtful, and I appreciate the tone that you set in committee. Members, I'm also reflecting on the debate that we've had today, and I'm reminded that this legislature is the most reflective of the people of Minnesota of any previous legislature in history. And I'm honored to be a part of that. And members, some of those voices are a bit discordant from what we've heard before because they're bringing forward the experience of people who haven't been here before. I believe that those of us who have the privilege and the honor of elected office have as a first obligation to hear all the voices in our state. And I hope when you make your decision on how you'll vote on this bill, you'll take in all the voices that have been heard. The bill we're being asked to vote on today, however, undermines opportunities for Minnesota students from pre-kindergarten through high school graduation and beyond. Others have pointed out it funds our schools at a rate below inflation. It limits parental choice in early childhood programming. It repeals the voluntary pre-kindergarten program 7 months into the program. It steps back from our commitment to make college an option for all students and penalizes schools, low-income schools, where parents choose to opt their children out of standardized tests when they don't see that those testing are providing them anything of value. That elimination of the voluntary preschool program, the pre-kindergarten program, there are districts like Burnsville that reconfigured all of its schools to make room, to create classrooms for those little ones. They've gone to the expense, they've gone to the administrative work, they've done it to meet the needs of their school district and their families, and now under this bill, we're pulling that opportunity away from them. This is the first time in my years here in the Minnesota House that I've actually seen an education chair reduce the state's commitment to the general education formula after the bill left her committee. Below what we need, while the state faces significant teacher shortages in greater Minnesota and the metro area, we're dropping the formula increase to something that's half of what they need just to make inflation. What will that mean for opportunities for students? What will that mean for class size? Members, if we just took the money that was in yesterday's tax bill for private school, the private school voucher scheme, and instead added that to the general education formula in Chair Loon's bill, we'd make inflation. We'd allow our schools to hold the line. This bill is a matter of choices. Representative Mariani passed out runs for us all that show the House bill, the Senate bill, and the governor's proposal. And the House bill responds to the needs of Minnesota children and families in schools at the bottom of that list. You've all seen it. You all know what it looks like. But members, it's not just what's in this bill that's problematic, it's what's missing from the bill. How about equalizing school levies so that districts and property taxpayers across the state were better treated and could have a different conversation about meeting the needs in their community? Minnesota ranks near the bottom in school counselors to student ratio. And whether that kid is having a bad day and needs somebody to help them emotionally, or whether that kid's trying to plan their post-secondary options, we need to do better for all of our kids, and this bill doesn't do that. When we repeal the state's obligation to provide access to an ACT test, key to after high school opportunities, we hurt those thousands and hundreds of thousands of families across the state who aren't really poor, but are living paycheck to paycheck. And that $50 or that $100 or whatever the charge they're going to have to face is a bridge too far for them. And their child won't get the option. We need, as Representative Hawley argued well for, we need to be thinking outside the school to support the students' academic achievement. And again, we fall short. There are school districts and communities that want to step in to the education innovation partnerships that she talked about, but are blocked out of that funding in this bill. Those are primarily greater Minnesota districts. There are districts, again, in greater Minnesota, I'm thinking particularly of Faribault and Deer River, who want to set up full-service community schools and need a little seed money. Not in this bill. The very sort of innovative programs that keep the core strong in our education system and then work outside it to support kids and to support communities. We've got a lot to be proud of in Minnesota in our education system, and a lot of challenges as well. We need to meet both of those through a strong core and innovation. But it's about choices. Members, just yesterday, we voted $500 million in public funds as a subsidy to the health insurance industry with no accountability whatsoever. No measures, no metrics, no report back, no promise, no nothing. $500 million is almost double the commitment that this House's leadership is willing to make to K-12 education and students. That's about choices. Members, last year the Speaker was quoted as saying his goal was to starve the beast. What we didn't realize is the beast is our students. I ask for a no vote.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hortman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minnesotans value education, and we are rightfully proud of our schools. We're a nationwide leader. But this bill is a disappointment. It is not the bill that Minnesota deserves. Republican lawmakers have chosen tax cuts for the super rich and corporations over making sure that our children have enough teachers in their classrooms to give them the time and attention they need to learn. For Minnesota Democrats, education is our top priority. And Representative Carlson talked about how he tried in the Ways and Means Committee with the DFL members to change the budget targets. We proposed a budget target of $818 million for K-12 education, which still would have left you with $720 million for tax cuts, instead of the supersized $1.35 billion you chose instead. But by making that choice that night, you left Representative Loon with a target that's wholly inadequate for our children. This Republican bill has $450 million less for the general education formula than Governor Dayton's budget. It has a $47 million cut, eliminating voluntary pre-K, a $26 million cut to compensatory education revenue, and a $3 million cut for the ACT. Contrast this with the governor's approach. Governor Dayton wants to expand voluntary free pre-K. Right now it's at 74 districts and 260 more want it. Right now there's 3,300 preschoolers benefiting from this. And we could benefit 13,800 more 4-year-olds across the state. But instead, Republicans propose to eliminate voluntary free pre-K, and instead, in a last-minute maneuver, put that money into school readiness, which would increase parental fees. That last-minute maneuver ended up reducing your paltry 1.5% increase on the general education formula to an embarrassing 1.25%. It's less embarrassing than the 0.6 that you proposed in 2015, but it's still pretty embarrassing. With a $1.65 billion projected surplus, Republicans are proposing to underfund our schools, budgeting less than half of what's necessary just to keep up with inflation and to support early childhood education. At the end of the session, if we have any reasonable E-12 funding, we'll again know that it's because Governor Dayton fought for our school children, and again, he will deserve the credit for delivering for them. This Republican budget means fewer teachers in classrooms to help our children learn. It isn't something to be proud of, it won't help us lead, and it doesn't get the job done for Minnesota's children. Please vote no.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Pepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. You know, I think some people at home may be confused from listening to this because I think several on the other side have used things such as not keeping up with inflation or cutting education funding. And I think Representative Knobloch, Chair Knobloch, cleared a lot of it up. But I want everyone at home to understand that this budget, the education budget, is going up by $1.1 billion under this proposal. That is a 6.5% increase spending in education. Yes, it's 1.25 each year on the formula. But I might point out that in 2015, Representative Hortman, as you pointed out, the governor proposed a 1% increase in the formula, smaller than this one. The DFL-controlled Senate also proposed a 1% increase on the formula. But the bigger point is, I think that we need to be honest and straightforward with people about education spending. And you can talk about a part of the formula and how much, or part of the whole education budget and how much it's going up. But 6.5% increase, when this is taking up 42% of our budget, is a really good investment. And I want to thank Chair Loon and Chair Erickson for their work on this. This builds on the historic increases we gave to education last year. It increases funding. It targets money towards early learning initiatives that give families a choice. And it works to keep the best teachers in the classroom. Highlights again, an additional 1.25 and 1.25 in the formula, and of course that number increases in the second year. $22 million toward a new targeted academic achievement initiative. More than $300 million towards proven early learning programs. $40 million for enhanced school readiness funds. It repeals the outdated LIFO model that we took up on the floor recently, last in, first out. I think that's a historic change that we've been working on, and we should all be proud to make that change so that who's in the classroom isn't determined by something as silly as a flip of the coin, as it's done in some schools. We need to make sure that the best teachers can be kept in the classroom regardless of how many years they've been there. And the bill, of course, works to attract and keep good teachers. Additionally, it makes reforms to increase accountability and transparency in early childhood. Members, this is a great bill. Again, Chair Loon, thank you for your work on it, Chair Erickson as well. And members, I would encourage a green vote.
The member from Mille Lacs, Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This has been a most interesting discussion this afternoon. It saddens me as a retired teacher that the focus is on funding and not on great teachers. Because when I talk to parents, they don't talk to me about the money, they talk to me about having a great teacher in the classroom. And that's what the children remember. And of course, I'm proud of the speaker, having been his teacher. I don't know if he considers me a great teacher, but I know he was a very good student, so I'm very proud of that. But it is about the teacher in the classroom. It's about engaged parents, and it's about ways to meet the needs of your children because they're all over the place. And I know that having taught my 35 years. I want to thank Representative Loon because she took the challenge. As you know, she has a target that's not liked by many of us, but she did the best she could with it, being innovative, being concerned about what's going to work best to increase achievement among our children. And she didn't set that aside as a secondary importance. It was primary to her. So I want to thank her and the way she operates her committee very much. Because I know that Representative Murphy and I were often looking at each other, probably vying for the next question or the last question. So Representative Loon, I appreciate your leadership so much. I also appreciate my committee, the Education Innovation Policy Committee, Republicans and Democrats. I enjoyed all of you very much, and know that a lot of the DFL members were experiencing a huge learning curve, but you did so well, and I really appreciated you so much. In regard to those who were caring for our committee, I want to thank Stephanie and Lee, who are our pages. I want to thank the DFL researcher Mars, our GOP researcher Amy Roberts. I want to thank Tom Brennan, who was my legislative assistant, who had to put up with my editing of the minutes, and sometimes even I, as an English teacher, missed some things which the members of the committee would catch, and I also always appreciated that because we want to approve minutes that are accurate. I want to thank Andrew Hassick, my committee administrator. He is absolutely a genius when it comes to arranging meetings and giving me ideas for how to move forth with amendments and with good ideas for innovation. To Christina Pera, who's our brand new House Research nonpartisan, who has been absolutely amazing. And on Monday, when you hear the House File 140, the teacher licensure bill, which I'm authoring, you will know her expertise has risen to the top. And for that, I am so grateful. Also to Tim Strom, who would be present in committee to help out in case we had a question about finance. And then to Kevin Baer from the Revisor's Office. All these people are essential to having a well-run committee and for bringing about a House file like 890 that we can move to the Senate. Members, we can be very proud of this because this is about more than just funding. This is about moving in the direction for our children that's going to provide them with a great education because we want to focus on great teachers, we want to engage those students, and we want parents to be right there at our sides. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Loon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Thank you so much for a really thoughtful, respectful debate. I know that we all care about our kids. It's probably the thing that's most dear to us, the thing we spend a lot of time making sure that we try to get right, because it is so very important. So I'm going to pick up where Representative Erickson closed in terms of offering thank yous. So important to say thank you to the people who serve on the Education Finance Committee. It is a privilege to work with each and every one of you. You offer great questions, great insights, ideas to the work that we do at the committee. I had one new committee member mention to me one day that we do some really depressing work in here. We hear some really difficult topics, problems with mental health crisis with some of our schools and that. But another senior member mentioned in that same hearing afterwards that we also offer hope. And so I sincerely hope that that is true for all the members who serve on the committee, that it has been of value to you, that we have all learned together, and that it's been a place where we could all feel valued and free to share our ideas, whether or not we all agree or not. It's important to share that and your perspectives. To our committee staff, our committee administrator, Harry Kennedy, Doreen Keynes, who's our committee legislative assistant, Amy Roberts, who is also our GOP researcher, Mars Beltrandi Rudquist, DFL researcher, our two pages, Franklin Berg and Emma Wiese. Great team. Representative Erickson has mentioned the education policy staff, and we work very closely together. It's really an interwoven team, and we do our work together and we consult with one another, and it's a great way to operate. And our fantastic nonpartisan staff. Tim Strom, who of course many of you, if you've been here for a while, know is the knower of all when it comes to education things, and we could not do what we do without him. We have two brand new folks, and actually the education finance team is almost largely all new this year. And in the nonpartisan staff, we have brand new folks. Emily Adrians, who is our brand new fiscal analyst for the committee, and then Christina Pera, who is one of our House research folks. Brand new, but doing just an amazing job. So it is a real privilege to work with all of you. Thank you so much. No one puts a bill together alone. It is definitely a joint project with many, many hands and ideas in the work product. With that, I want to talk a little bit and thank some of the members for their ideas, all incorporated in this bill. And I'll try not to belabor this, but I really do listen to all the bills that come forward and to the ideas brought forward. And we tweak things along the way. I take suggestions from members and say, you know what? I didn't have that in my original bill, but I like what you brought to the table. Let's put that in. So we've got things from Representative Erickson, from Representative Daniels, Representative Bennett talked about some of her contributions, Representative Lee thank you so much for your tremendous contributions to this. And I'm sorry to the rest of the freshmen, but he gets the award for the best treats brought to committee. We all really, really love the egg rolls. Thank you so much. It was wonderful. Representative Metza, Representative Detmer, Representative Murphy, Representative Tice, just wonderful ideas brought to the committee that we were, Representative Thiessen, that we were able to incorporate into this product. There's so many individual things in here that I can't talk about because I know you all want to go home, and so do I. It's 7 o'clock, and we should do that. But I just have to respond a little bit to a couple of the points made. And again, affirm what I think has been stated, but affirm the pathway we're trying to head in. And a lot of this discussion centers around early childhood and what we're going to do there. We have started out on a pathway that is really good for reaching into families with very young children, because we know the achievement gap, that opportunity gap starts early, starts very early. And if we can help provide some good quality interventions, some good quality education, we can move the trajectory of that child's life into coming into kindergarten successfully ready to learn. So it's important that we make those investments. But as we look to make those investments, we know that there's also a lot of competition for money, not only across the entire budget, but within the education budget itself. It was mentioned what happened between Education Finance Committee and the Tax Committee when we replaced the voluntary pre-K pilot dollars that are going to 74 districts. There's over 300 school districts in the state of Minnesota, 74 getting VPK money. We replaced it with school readiness, and that took our formula funding from 1.5 to 1.25. Yes, it did. Guess what? That money competes for formula money. And whether the governor wants to say that or not, or anyone else wants to say it out loud, I will tell you, it does. And school superintendents know that too. So, do we want to target our early education dollars to the kids who need it most? Or do we want to create a new grade in our public schools for 4-year-olds that will also compete with the funding for K-12 right now? I know the governor has shifted his discussion on this issue from universal preschool to voluntary, but it's not really. It's a phased-in approach, but that's where he's headed. And so if the preschool program would ultimately be expanded to all schools and serve about 56,000 4-year-olds, those are the estimates, 33% of those 4-year-olds would qualify for free or reduced lunch. That's 185% of poverty or below. Those are the standards that we use for qualifying for scholarships and for school readiness with no charge. 33%. That's a huge investment, because fully phased in, that's about $1 billion for 33% of kids. I'm proposing that we take the money that we can invest in early childhood and target those kids in poverty who need it most, where that return on that investment is greatest. And that we also make sure we're trying to keep our schools moving forward with funding for all K-12 pupils. These are things to think about. Do we want to target our resources to kids that need it most to make sure we're getting kids ready for kindergarten? Or do we want to create a new grade that possibly risks investment in that larger system? Certainly bears some thinking about. I want to talk a little bit about parental choice in this too, and I've referenced this earlier, but coming back to the discussion on Pathway 2. Yes, Pathway 2 does provide funding across providers of early childhood. But the biggest recipients of Pathway 2, and again, this is the money goes directly to programs, not to kids directly, 67% goes to schools, 17% to Head Start. That's 84% of the dollars. Do you know how much goes to private providers then, whether it be center-based or home-based? Yeah, that's 16%. And I have a list of where the Pathway 2 goes, and I could count probably on both hands with my 10 fingers how many go to home-based providers. Hardly any. So it's not exactly an equitable way of providing those scholarships. And again, it does not allow parents maximum choice. They can't port those dollars if they take it through Pathway 2. Let's trust parents. I have no doubt in my mind that they're probably, many of them, going to choose a school-based program. Why are we afraid of letting them make that choice? Schools, you build good programs, they will come. It will happen. But we don't need to lock in those dollars and take those decisions away from parents. That defeats part of the purpose with this programming and what we're trying to achieve. To my friends concerned about Native American students, and I know we all are, you know, I just have to say, we really made huge strides in the last budget. And sometimes things happen that way. We leap forward in one area, and then that kind of stays there with a big increase from the previous biennium, and we work on other things, try to even things out, or work on another priority. So we created a new funding stream of aid for American Indian children in Minnesota. We went from a grant program that went to some of them for a little, about $4.3 million to over $18 million. So for every school with 20 or more Native American students, you get $450 per student, per those Native American students in your school. And we provide money to the BIE schools as well. They are federal schools. In fact, MDE and our statutes treat them as private schools. They don't show up on our district runs because they are treated as private schools, but we provide them money as well. The 4 BIE schools get almost $4 million from the state of Minnesota because we do know that they are our children, even though they are not our schools. So I'm really proud of that commitment. I was going to go through the runs on the American Indian student aid last year, but I'm not going to do that with the lateness of the hour. Members, not every bill is going to make everyone happy. I understand that. I understand the concerns about the level of investment in our children. Believe me, I get that too. I really do. But I hope you can understand and at least appreciate the efforts that we are trying to make to not only help our schools continue moving forward in the very difficult job that they have educating all children and the really great job that they do. Our teachers are amazing people. They really are. I sent my own kids to private school. I can't say enough about the excellent experience that my children had, and many children have had. But we've got to make sure that we're addressing the problems that we know exist. A little talk about testing and whether or not that's a full measure of a child. Of course not. Of course not. But you know what the standardized testing does? It keeps that very uncomfortable spotlight on the problem that we can't ignore if we continue to test and measure. And that is that we are not doing what we need to do for our children of color. That is why civil rights groups pressured Congress when they did the reform from No Child Left Behind to ESSA to keep standardized testing in as a requirement. Because as long as we're testing and measuring, there is no longer a way to hide from the truth those numbers show. keep that in mind. Oh, did I say I said my kids to private school? I said my kids to public school. I'm sorry. Eden Prairie Public School. Public school. And they're wonderful schools. So, members, some tough decisions to be made moving forward. But I want you to know that every step of the way, I will be fighting for our kids. I will be fighting to add money to that formula. Every school that's come in to see me, every superintendent that's come in to ask me about this, I've told them that. I told them that 2 years ago, and I think they know I'm good for my word. That is my priority. That is my commitment. But sir, we're also going to make sure that we continue to focus, like a laser beam, on those kids who need it most. That is also my commitment. And that hopefully we will be doing this together with all of the best ideas the education committees and every member of this body brings to the table. We are in this together for our kids, and it's my privilege to help lead this effort. And with that, I would ask for your support on the bill. Thank you.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 75 ayes and 54 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. Without objection, we'll revert to messages from the Senate. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Mr. Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House file number 3, an act relating to transportation. Smith moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House file number 3, and that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 3 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
Recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Smith, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, that is my motion.
Discussion on the motion. The member
Mr.
from
Speaker?
Hennepin, Representative Hortman.
I would ask for a roll call.
Roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Hortman.
Mr. Speaker, I think that we should vote down this motion to refuse to concur. I think the Senate did a good job. They voted 60-7. There's no reason we can't do real ID today. We can put this bill on the governor's desk. We should be able to vote about 130-4. Let's do it now. So members, I would advise you to vote red on the motion to refuse to concur.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the motion. The clerk will close the roll. There being 75 ayes and 54 nays, the motion prevails. Announcements by the Speaker.
Announced by the Speaker. The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House file number 3. Smith, Torkelson, and Pawlowski.
Report from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Pepin from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21 and 3.33, designates the following bills to be placed on the calendar for the day for Tuesday, April 4th, 2017, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bills: House File Number 707 and Senate File Number 2214.
Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there's no objection, we'll take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. Announcements. The member from Hennepin, Representative Carlson.
I was going to follow. I thought perhaps the Chair of Ways and Means, but I'll yield to him because my announcement kind of fits into what I think he was going to say.
Member from Sherburne, Representative Knobloch.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Representative Carlson, I guess you want to have a meeting tonight? Is that what you're saying? Members, the Ways and Means Committee will not meet tonight. We will not meet at 10:15 on Monday either, but we will meet sometime after session to take up the state government bill and the omnibus jobs bill at the call of the chair on Monday afternoon.
Member from Hennepin,
And
Representative
Mr. Speaker, I was trying to fit into his time frame there. The DFL members of Ways and Means will meet after session and prior to Ways and Means in room 272.
Any further announcements? The member from Hennepin, Representative Pepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 10 a.m., Monday, April 3rd, 2017.
Representative Pepin moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 10 o'clock a.m. on Monday, April 3rd, 2017. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails. Representative Pepin.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Pepin moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails, and the House stands adjourned until 10 o'clock a.m. on Monday, April 3rd, 2017.